All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to tonight's election coverage. We got a late start tonight because this is a West Coast primary. There are some earlier states. We debated starting a little bit earlier if any of these results looked interesting, but I think we made the right decision holding off here until 9 o'clock, just so you guys can follow the really interesting stuff, which are these California primaries, New Mexico primaries, and then a bunch of other elections that are starting to trickle in as well. We've got a ballot initiative in South Dakota, which could potentially have major implications for the future of ballot initiatives in the state. We've got several contested primaries in Mississippi, of all states. We saw one of them. We expected one of them. And then the other we saw coming as well. And finally, we've just got a bunch of these local California races. We got statewide races for governor, but we also got a major recall in San Francisco for the district attorney of San Francisco. That's a really contested recall election. Boudin is facing a very, very strong opposition from I wouldn't want to say conservative factions in San Francisco because there really aren't any, but from a bunch of factions who are very disappointed with his approach to prosecuting crime, being a district attorney in general. So I'll go ahead and throw it to Joe here to explain go a little bit more detail. Then we'll go right into Kraz. He'll talk about the California stuff. Or actually, no. Let's talk about what's going on right now in Mississippi first and foremost. That's the big one that's going on. Mention New Jersey, then we'll get into California because we are working a little bit from behind here on some of these states. So go ahead, Joe, lead us off with Mississippi. What's going on?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to start Mississippi here tonight, folks, because we were watching Mississippi's 4th Congressional District. Incumbent Congressman Stephen Palazzo was under some fire. He's been a congressman who's had not massive scandals, but scandals in the past relating both to his campaign finances and to his history in the military service. Right now, it's very early results right now, but from what we've heard down and above, a lot of people believe that Palazzo will be held under 50% tonight and go to a runoff. But the one we were not expecting tonight in the 3rd Congressional District, Michael Guest, the congressman there, is currently down by I believe it's tied. Decision News right now has it tied, but no other sites right now have him down right now in his reelection bid to primary challenger Michael Cassidy. It's possible right now. It feels like right now this race would go to a runoff. Right now, currently, Thomas Griffin, a 3rd candidate, is taking around 10-12% of the vote. That usually means in these cases that this is another race that would go to runoff. That would be hugely interesting. We did not expect Guest to be one of the folks we'd be talking about tonight, but right now we certainly are. It should be said that the biggest population center of this district, Jackson, Mississippi, has not yet come in yet. That'll tell us a whole lot because it is by far and wide the biggest vote population in this district, even for the primary, because of those Jackson exurbs. So that'll tell us a whole lot when those results eventually drop tonight. But Mississippi certainly may be one we should be paying a little bit closer attention to tonight as we go on. And then in New Jersey, there were 2 Republican primaries we were really watching tonight. New Jersey 04, there was some talk that Chris Smith might be starting to get some blowback because Smith is again arguably potentially too moderate for a seat that has significantly shifted rightward compared to when he first started representing the district all the way back in 1980. But DDHQ and thus the Elections Daily has already called that race for Smith. He will win his renomination and then coast to re-election in this the heaviest Republican seat in New Jersey by far.
Mm-hmm. He's currently ahead by 22 points right now. That's the margin that we're looking at, 58-37, so not under 50%.
Yeah. And then as well, then in New Jersey's 7th District, Tom Keene, we have not called this race yet, but he's doing relatively well in the most Republican parts of the district so far. In the western part of the district, that's where some of the resistance to Kane, who was a moderate, was expected there right now, crucially in Huntington and Warren counties, 2 of the most Republican counties in the district. Both of those, he is currently getting over 50% of the vote in those 2 counties right now. That's Tom Kane Jr., that is getting over right now. And that's really it right now for live. Of course, polls have just closed, I believe, in Iowa and South Dakota. Has New Mexico closed yet, I believe? Has New Mexico closed yet at this 9 o'clock time?
Let me check our election calendar here. New Mexico, they close at Mountain Time, so I think they should be closed by now.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, New Mexico is also closed. We're watching a couple of key races there as well right now. Obviously, the Republican primary for governor, where we expect Mark Ronchetti to do well, though. But we're also watching the Democratic primary in the 2nd Congressional District, the race to take on Yvette Harrell in that newly gerrymandered Democratic favorite district in the 2nd Congressional District, New Mexico. It'll be very interesting to see who the nominee is there in that seat for Democrats. But we're going to go to Kraz here now.
So this is going to be an interesting night. I'm excited. I'm obviously very surprised about guests, just like all you guys are. Didn't expect to see that. But I'm going to be excited to see California tonight. We got a number of races we're watching over there. We obviously have the recall or potential recall of Chesa Boudin out in San Francisco. We've also got the Attorney General's race, could be interesting in California, along with the Controller's race and the Treasurer's race, and a number of very interesting congressional primaries.
Is the LA mayoral race today? I'm sorry.
That's going to be today too. Obviously, these are going to be. We're going to have to wait a little bit for the results. So more like Christmas, but we're at least going to get an initial batch of results. We should know the results of the Boudin recall tonight. If the early ballots lean heavily one way, it'll be too much ground for the other side to make up. But additionally, San Francisco tends to report faster than other counties in California. So we should at least know that result tonight, and we'll get a good indication where the rest of the races are headed.
Let's kind of start with San Francisco. You're from San Francisco. You're really familiar with the area. You've written articles for us about the Bay Area, some of its really eccentric politics. The split between these moderate Democrats and more progressive Democrats. Probably my favorite one you've written, just as a little tangent, is the one, the last Republican elected in San Francisco, who was removed several years ago, just entirely on a campaign of, this guy is a Republican, how has he been elected in San Francisco? Essentially was the campaign. But this time we've got, we have this recall campaign. You had the whole school board in San Francisco, I believe, faced a substantial recall, right? That was the last time. That was a pretty substantial defeat for some progressive forces, although they did some specific things to alienate a lot of people. Chesa Boudin has also done some really specific things since he's got elected that have alienated some people, that have led to this recall campaign that polls have indicated he's favored to lose this recall, or to lose the vote. So what's going on here? Why has this happened? And what does this kind of pretend? I know you posted a lot about this, but I want our listeners to hear it as well, because they may not follow you on Twitter and have seen your thread discussions on this.
Yeah, I mean, they should follow me on Twitter, but also, so Boudin, yes. There are a couple of things going on here. So first off, Boudin was controversial from the start, right? So he won in 2019 with a very slim majority. And in 2019, the progressive prosecutor movement across a lot of major American cities was pretty ascendant, right? You saw around this time, the Queens DA race almost go to, I think it was Tiffany Caban, who was a public defender running for the DA spot. Around this time, Larry Krasner, Kim Foxx got elected the next year in 2020 in Chicago. So, the progressive prosecutor movement was really ascendant. But Boudin was particularly controversial for a few reasons. I mean, first off, his family background. His parents were in prison for a long time for their role in a series of bank robberies that ended with the death of multiple people, the murder of multiple people, and Boudin has never really expressed any kind of remorse about that. Obviously, it's his parents. He's not responsible for his parents' actions, but he's used his parents' experience in prison kind of as an example of how he knows how corrupt the system is. So he's controversial a little bit for his family background, and he's just controversial in the sense that he's been more of a, I would say, straightforward messenger, talking about how he's not going to prosecute certain crimes. But what really started to happen was there's just been a series of scandals, not scandals, but controversies, I would say, that kind of reduced his popularity. So a couple instances where it looked like he had refused to prosecute racially motivated crimes, particularly against Asian Americans. There's growing frustration with rampant property crime in San Francisco. So break-ins, burglaries, and then other kinds of kind of antisocial nuisance behavior. So open drug use, large encampments of homeless. And so Boudin is seen basically as not caring about these things, right? He's seen as essentially brushing them off. And I think Boudin got in trouble because now he's facing an electorate that's going to be older, whiter, more conservative than the one that elected him in 2019. And he kind of has this blind spot where he's been talking a lot about, the corrupt American prison system, and how, over incarceration hurts communities. And regardless whether or not that's true, Boudin is running in San Francisco. San Francisco, even before he came into office, had a much lower incarceration rate than anywhere else, or not anywhere else, but than the vast majority of the country. So this is a local race, local issues, and I think Boudin's blind spots there are going to hurt him.
And you mentioned here this more conservative electorate. Just go a little bit briefly into kind of what that means in terms of San Francisco. I assume this is like maybe more business-oriented crowds, not the younger sort of progressive set that's out in the.
Yeah, so I don't want to give the impression it's a lot of Republicans, but it's so for example, right, Donald Trump got 14% of the vote in San Francisco in 2020, right? So the electorate that shows up maybe gave him 18% of the vote, right? I mean, we're not talking about some really conservative electorate, but you look at youth turnout across the state has been terrible in early voting. It's probably going to be terrible in San Francisco. Boudin does really well with young voters. And when we talk about a more conservative electorate, especially in the context of some of these recall elections, especially the school board recall that happened back in February, that really means a lot of upper middle class Asian voters that live in places like the Excelsior district in the south part of the city, the Sunset district in the west part of the city, and Chinatown by the financial district. These voters gave huge margin to the recall campaign for the school board. They're generally a little bit more ideologically conservative. They give higher percentages of the votes to Republicans. And it looks like that's going to be, they're going to be the key to see whether or not Boudin gets recalled.
And I assume these are similar communities. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. All I was going to say was, go ahead.
No. Go. Or I assume these are similar to the communities that voted against the lowering the voting age from 18 to 16 twice. I've written about that. I assume that's a similar sort of ideological split here.
Yeah. So these are basically these are communities that are just as democratic as the rest of the city, pretty much, to be a little more ideologically conservative. They voted heavily against Boudin last time, and I assume they're going to vote pretty heavily against him this time. And they turn out in very high numbers. So if they're against you, that's not a good sign.
And so what happens here if he is recalled? Does this go into I assume there's a special election to fill the spot, or is it go into November?
No, so what happens is the mayor gets to appoint his replacement. And that's important because the mayor has signaled that she wants to get tougher on crime. So she launched an initiative at the beginning of the year to clean up the Tenderloin, which is a neighborhood in San Francisco that tends to have higher levels of homelessness and drug use. She launched a special police task force. She increased policing in the area. When Matt Haney, the supervisor for the Tenderloin, won a special election to go to the California State House, Mayor Breed got to appoint a replacement, and she appointed the SF Police Department's spokesperson to his seat. So she has signaled that
that's a measure if there was ever one.
She has signaled that she feels like the city is being too soft on crime. So presumably she would appoint a much tougher prosecutor if he's recalled.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. That I wasn't aware of the mayoral appointment, but that makes a lot of sense. But I think we got some stuff out of Mississippi that we really need to go to, because this is a pretty big. I mean, obviously this is very early, but I'll let Joe kind of explain it here really briefly.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some pretty surprising things in the third district.
So we're gonna go with DDHQ numbers here, of course, folks. We're looking first here, Mississippi's 4th congressional district. Stephen Palazzo currently getting only about 36% of the vote right now. We're estimating about 5% of the vote in that primary. Clay Wagner, a businessman from the area, is currently in second place with 28% of the vote, while Mike Gazelle, a sheriff in the district, is at 22% of the vote. So those are the three candidates, it seems, right now to watch right now. But right now we've got Palazzo under 40% of the vote right now, with it's again early votes in right now, only 5% estimated in from BDHQ. But that is certainly not a good sign from Palazzo if he wants to avoid a runoff tonight. I got news, and I tweeted this out a couple nights ago, that most people inside and outside the district expected Palazzo to go into the runoff just based on the sheer number of candidates that were in the race. As well, he's had 5 primary opponents today. So right now we're certainly tracking towards that. But to the surprise one, Mississippi's 3rd congressional district right now. Right now, DDHQ is estimating about 3% of the vote, and Michael Cassidy is up 49-39 over Michael Guest right now in this race. Again, excuse me, folks, very, very early numbers there right now. But that's certainly the case right now there. We know that other sites are currently ahead of us in that regard, still showing similar results to what we have right now. But We will catch up to those guys soon, hopefully. But right now, currently, the big surprise right now, it does seem like Michael Guest. Again, there is nothing in yet from the Jackson exurb area. Again, the highest vote totals in the district. We'll see how good those go for Guest. If he does very, very well there, he might very well survive still without a runoff, but certainly a closer than expected race right now there for Michael Guest. But I also do want to give a quick shout out back to the New Jersey 7th District primary. Our Republican Tom Kane back up to 58% of the vote. We're estimating about 15% in right now on DDHQ. Right now, Kane very much tracking towards a relatively easy victory right now. But I do also want to point out something here, folks. Right now, there is some talk over the past couple of weeks about Abby Finkenauer, who was once considered a major rising star in Iowa, potentially losing tonight's primary to Michael Franken. The first county is coming into rural county, Clay County, out in the western portion of Iowa. But right now, Michael Franken is blowing Finkenauer out of the water there. He's up 70-25 in that county right now. See if it translates. Kraz, go right ahead, please, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in here. According to DDHQ, we have some results from South Dakota Constitutional Amendment C, which some listeners are probably going to say, what is that and why do I care? Well, this was somewhat of a controversial amendment. This amendment would make the threshold for spending ballot measures in South Dakota higher. They would need 60% to pass instead of the current 50+1. This is important because Medicaid expansion is going to be on the ballot in November. This was put on the ballot entirely by Republicans to try to curb the Medicaid expansion ballot measure. And according to DDHQ, it's currently losing 70-30, with lots of counties reporting substantial numbers of votes, and it being down a lot. So unclear.
And I actually have a little bit of a comment on here. Yeah, because this is interesting because we've actually seen a similar. Granted, North Carolina is a much less Republican state, but when Republicans put a ballot measures up there, that would have changed election procedures for the Board of Elections and for judicial nominees. Those are also resoundingly rejected across the board, and basically all but the furthest flung areas of the state outside of the media markets. Right now, this is mostly stuff that's around sort of the western or eastern portion of South Dakota, the more populous portion. I think it's closer to some of the bigger cities. So this isn't entirely surprising because I think in the past, at least North Carolina, Republican voters have kind of shown a willingness to not be a huge fan of changing electoral systems through ballot initiatives. That's a pretty hard sell, frankly, in a lot of ways. Even if it's something, especially if it's something that Republican voters may like. I mean, South Dakota may well approve Medicaid expansion. It has an undefeated record in ballot initiatives. So, this is not a good start, very bad start, in fact, for this ballot initiative. But I think real quick back to that 3rd district in Mississippi, worth noting here the ideological makeup of this district. This is a district that Trump won 62-37. This is a very, very, very Republican district, more Republican than the state of Mississippi as a whole. We were looking more at the 4th district because Michael Palazzo had a lot of scandals there. This is also an equally very Republican district. It's a Trump plus 38 seat. So this is, this does have a few Democratic areas, but it was within 20 points in the Senate race in 2020. But this is a very, very Republican and very, very ideologically conservative seat. A lot of those deep red suburbs along the Jackson area, and by deep red suburbs, I mean the counties in this area. Rankin County is a county that Trump won 72-27. When we say red suburbs in southern states like Mississippi, Alabama, we mean red. We mean very, very, very Republican areas. Like you look at the suburbs of Birmingham. You look at even historically the suburbs of Charlotte, some of the areas around Columbia, extremely Republican areas. And then states like Mississippi, they hold to this day. This is a 73-71, 73% white county, 21% black county, and it tracks pretty well with what's basically been shown in Mississippi, which is that black voters vote Democratic about 90-10, or 95-5, 90-10, and white voters vote Republican about 80-20 at worst, and like 85-15, 90-10, like very, very racially polarized states. So like these are the very, very, very Republican areas we're talking about here.
More results on the Mississippi 3rd Republican primary. Michael Cassidy's up above 50%.
Wow.
51.
Yeah, we've got 6% in. Let me check to see where those county results are coming in. He's doing very well in Covington County. That's a rural county. He's above 50% there right now. Jasper County, he is about running even basically with Guest there. Jefferson
nothing in
Davis
from
was
Rankin
being a little
yet.
bit better for Guest. I mean, keep going through the counties here. Let me try and see him.
Yep. And there's nothing in from Rankin yet either.
Marion is where Cassidy is doing really well. That's where these big dump of votes in. He's at 52-34 right now over Guest in Marion County. That's the big one right there.
I mean, is there a world where Guest doesn't even make the runoff?
Yes, there is a world where that could happen.
I don't
it's
know.
Early. It's early.
It's early, and again, without numbers from that exurban part of Jackson, really hard to say. I will say that other sites who are still a little bit ahead of us right now have Guests significantly closer and doing very relatively better around the Jackson area. So that is something I will say right there, is that in sites that are just slightly farther ahead of us right now, it is a significantly tighter race. That makes it look less likely that we see a clear sweep for either county, for other candidate right now in those races.
Yeah, and it's worth noting Cassidy is running a very, very conservative campaign and a very, very anti-establishment campaign. Like if you look at his website, some of the issues, the big ones are obviously things like election integrity and immigration, stuff that he's criticized Michael Guest on, but also like the American Dream section has some fairly radical ideas like deporting all illegal aliens in the country, tariffs, creating but also things that are kind of not stuff you would associate with someone like that, like creating a maternal leave program with 5 years of benefits, banning corporations, hedge funds, and foreign entities from owning private residences and farmland. That's a populist issue that's kind of popped up. You have places like BlackRock buying up houses and apartments and stuff like that. So he's running a very, very conservative campaign that's also a lot of idiosyncratic in a lot of ways. This is kind of strikes me as a very, very populist sort of campaign, just from a first glance at this stuff. Like in particular, the BlackRock stuff. That's something I've seen quite a bit of stuff from Republicans who lean more towards the Trumpy populist end, or more just more anti-establishment in general. So I would say he would probably be someone who would fall probably firmly in line with the Freedom Caucus in a lot of ways, but it's not 100% what you would expect from like an ultra-conservative candidate running in Mississippi. In other ways, though, very similar, like a focus on affirmative action, banning race preferences, all that sort of stuff as well. What on earth?
What is it?
Oh, yeah, this is the weird one. Providing newlyweds with a $20,000 wedding gift paid back if the couple divorces. That's a strange...
That's a strange one, but okay.
That's a strange
all
one.
right.
That's going on Twitter. You should put that on Twitter, Kraz, just because that's a bit interesting.
That's a wild one. Well, I will say
I'm a socialist, and I'm not even on that.
I don't think Guest avoids a runoff here. Although I will say he has recovered a little bit. He has 43. I mean, in some sites that are ahead, he has 43%, and pretty much his entire base in Rankin still needs to come in. So it's on the outside realm of possibility. If he does really well in his home base, he could maybe avoid it.
Yeah, I also want to go back to that 4th district. It's looking increasingly likely right now that Congressman Stephen Palazzo, as many people expected, is going to head to a runoff here. Some areas ahead of us right now are starting to report in from the Harrison, which holds Biloxi County. I believe we maybe have some early results there as well from DDHQ. Palazzo is only hitting about 30% of the vote right there in Harrison County, which houses Biloxi. If he's not doing very well there, that's a pretty strong sign that we're going to head to a runoff in Mississippi's 4th congressional district when that time comes. So that's when is the runoff date again for Mississippi? It preludes me a little bit. I know it's in August at some point, but that it's very, very possible right now that we see this, that we see 2 runoffs in these 2 more kind of to the southern part of Mississippi congressional districts right now for these 2 Republican primaries. And I now do want to bring some attention here to Iowa. We have Abby Finkenauer's political career is on life support. Very much so, as much as it already wasn't. Right now, Finkenauer with about estimated 23% of the vote in from DDHQ, according to DDHQ. Finkenauer is down 57 to 37 right now against Michael Franken right now in that primary. And I think probably the real issue right now is in Dubuque and Johnson counties. I believe Dubuque was one that Finkenauer represented when she was in Congress, I believe. Franken is winning that county right now by a slimmer margin than what he's doing statewide, but he's winning that county right now, and that is that's no bueno. That's
not ideal.
If I were Finkenauer, but Dylan mentioned this in our private chat here. New Mexico, we have some of our first results here in New Mexico in the Republican governor's primary right now. In the early numbers right there, Mark Ronchetti is expected is running away with that race right now. He has 63% of the vote, right now, with an estimated 5% of the vote in. Looks like Ronchetti is going to run away with that, and that's from different parts of the state as well, including very Republican areas of the state. So that looks good for Ronchetti. And then Gabriel Vasquez is up heavy in that Democratic primary in the 2nd Congressional District. That is a big one right there for Democrats right now. One of the very few potential pickup opportunities they seem to potentially have this year is in that newly gerrymandered New Mexico 2nd Congressional District against Yvette Harrell. Certainly something to keep an eye on, though, right now, Gabriel Vasquez. Pretty heavy 75-25 lead right now over Darshan Patel, with very early results in that race.
Yeah, and I just want to say I was looking through again more of this website. Cassidy will be a problem for Republicans if he's the nominee, to put it bluntly. He supports a complete moratorium on immigration for 10 years, and also supports replacing migrant labor on farms with prison labor. So
dear.
That's
no.
So So that could be a problem.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that last one again. I think I might have misheard you.
Yeah, replacing migrant labor on farms with prison labor, paid apparently, but replacing them with prisoners. So,
then
that's
okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a problem for. The good news is he's under 50% now. If you're not in favor of that stuff, so
yes, I am looking at Thomas Griffin, the other candidate in the race. I'm looking at his website. He's running a very similar kind of campaign.
But I will say one of his media gallery is him and his golden retriever wearing sunglasses in his truck. So,
which is kind of amazing.
Which is it's pretty funny. Like I looked it up and I couldn't find it for a while. Like I thought he just didn't have a website, which I thought was even funnier. He was getting like 13% of the vote, but he actually has a website, and it's like him and his golden retriever in every photo.
Yeah, I've literally been looking for this guy's website.
I do want to interrupt just for a quick second here. We do have an update in Mississippi's 4th Congressional District right now. We are estimating about 18% of the vote in right now. Palazzo still holds around 35% of the vote right now. But Mike Ezell has taken a very, very slim, about 0.7 percentage point lead over Clay Wagner for that second spot. Again, it's looking increasingly likely right now that Palazzo will head to a runoff. Will be forced in that result right now. But currently, Mike Ezell, a sheriff from the area, has overtaken Clay Wagner in that race. It looks to be very, very tight between the two in terms of who will face who in that regard. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how those results will continue to come in.
So yeah, my guess is that if this goes to a runoff, Griffin endorses Cassidy and maximum chaos begins.
That'd be fun.
Would it? Because Cassidy seems genuinely unhinged.
So. Probably not in the regard of what's being shown currently, I would say.
No.
Mm-hmm. I do want to mention right now the Senate primary in South Dakota on the Republican side. I know there had been some talk. Donald Trump had floated endorsing a primary challenger to John Thune. Doesn't appear to be working very well. Thune is at 72%. Thune is, of course, widely considered a potential leadership candidate, a replacer for Mitch McConnell. He's a very high-ranking Republican. He's basically the next in line for that. Obviously, John Thune was first elected, defeating in 2004, Tom Daschle for that really crucial Senate race there, then the Democratic minority leader, the last time a member of Senate leadership from either party has been defeated. The only time it's happened in recent memory, as far as I can tell. So he's kind of generally seen as that next in line to Mitch McConnell. He is winning easily 72% of the vote. Next closest challenger only has 20% of the vote, which is typically in line with what you see in a lot of these partisan primaries for Senates, even where there's not a major candidate.
So, not that I, as a Democrat, can criticize Republican leadership for being too old, but isn't John Thune like the exact same age as Mitch McConnell?
No,
I'm pretty
John
sure he's
Thune
younger.
is 60. He's 61. He's only 61.
Oh, I thought he was older.
Yeah.
No,
he's 61. He was young when he first ran. I mean, he first ran in 2002, and he almost beat Tim Johnson, which would have been really interesting. If because then there wouldn't have been anyone to really take on Daschle in 2004. But no, he's young. He kind of took over that leadership track. You had Trent Lott back then, who was removed from leadership for some unsavory comments about Strom Thurmond. But yeah, Trump's threats, needless to say, did not really work here. He didn't actually endorse a challenger. Thune is easily clearing. Worth noting, Grassley is also up at 74.7% of the vote, 25% for a primary challenger, Jim Carlin.
Grassley running
And
is
that's
such
in a
a
primary.
meme.
Who is?
Grassley running at 96 years old is.
Oh
such
yeah,
a
he's going to run until he dies. He also literally runs. Like he's
Well, yeah,
literally
you got.
still physically active.
Well, yeah, you got to get that state funeral.
But yeah, Franken is again still up 20% over Abby Finkenauer. Finkenauer only has one county right now. I believe that's in her. It's Fremont County. She's ahead there, but some of the ones like Woodbury, some of the other ones around like Polk County in particular. These are counties you don't want to be losing if you're running statewide in Iowa as a Democrat. You got, I think, parts of Des Moines, either Iowa City or what's the other one? There's Iowa City, and then there's right nearby.
Dubuque.
Yeah, no, not Dubuque. Johnson County basically she's losing that as well by 16 points. So yeah, not really good for Finkenauer. This is the end of the line for her. In all likelihood, she doesn't pick up the pace here.
I just wanted to chime in that I think South Dakota Measure C. We're not making a call, but its numbers do not look too good right now. Obviously, we talked about it when it had early numbers in, but if you look at Minor County, which is a very small rural county in eastern South Dakota, it had about 1,000 votes in the 2020 presidential election, about 1,100. There's about 500 in right now, so I would expect that that's most of the votes, almost entirely. And that measure in this very Republican county, they voted for Trump 69-28, is losing 74-26. So it's not the numbers you want to be seeing if you want that amendment to pass.
Definitely not. But let's go ahead. I think Finkenauer is an interesting one to talk about. Let's get a little bit more into her. Obviously, she's kind of the definition of a wave baby in a lot of ways. You had that brief reversion in Iowa back in 2018 where a Democrat slipped 2 districts. It's worth noting, of course, Iowa's districts. It's not a gerrymandered map, but Iowa, their House districts were historically a lot more favorable to Democrats than the state as a whole. So it's easier to flip back districts like that only voted for Trump, by a few points instead of by close to what he did statewide. But you had Finkenauer win. You had other Democrats when they had 3 of the 4 congressional districts. They did actually really well in the 4th district, I believe, because you had obviously really, really controversial Republican incumbent there in Peter King, who was kind of notorious. Yeah, Stephen King, really notorious for a bunch of extremely controversial at best and racist at worst comments that saw him unseated ahead of the 2020 election. You saw Iowa flip. It only went Democrat by about 4 points, but you saw Democrats slip the 1st and the 3rd district. Finkenauer in particular was seen as someone who's really kind of a rising Democratic star. She had worked in the Obama administration, I believe. She had been this young Democrat. She's only 33 right now, who's kind of seen as someone who could be kind of the future of the Iowa Democratic Party. Then you go ahead to 2020, that 1st district race. She loses to Ashley Hinson by about 3 percentage points. While Trump is winning that district, so she loses to him. That's obviously pretty bad. Then you have 2022. She runs for Senate against Chuck Grassley, which is a suicide mission. And this is a guy who is more likely he's who's coined the term of full Grassley, which is winning every county in the state of Iowa. running against him as a not even being able to clear the primary. Kind of what went wrong here with her career trajectory? I mean, there's not much you can do in a sort of district like Iowa's first, in a state like Iowa, where it just looks very, very bad for Democrats long term.
Well,
but even still,
yes, Michael Franken. I don't know that anything in particular went wrong for her. I think she ran into Michael Franken. I think was the candidate Democrats wish they had nominated instead of Teresa Greenfield. And I think that's sort of what happened here. Michael Franken was seen as the better candidate in the last primary, and I guess voters just wanted to nominate him this time. They had seen his name on the ballot before, so they just went with it. And it's not like being a one-term member of Congress made Finkenauer a household name or a Iowa powerhouse. I mean, she lost. She couldn't even win her own congressional district. I don't know why anyone saw her as a prohibitive favorite in this race.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with everything that Dylan said there. Quite honestly, that's really all it comes down to. I think the issue of the ballot issue that we saw earlier, remember that Finkenauer barely got onto the ballot because her team
forgot about that.
Basically got to the bare minimum amount of signatures needed in key counties in Iowa that you need to get. That was an early warning sign for sure about it's especially bad in Iowa because they don't even need to be, I believe, members of the party. I believe they can just be anyone that you can get to sign a petition in Iowa. So that makes it worse, which means you can literally just go door to door to door and get the very few amount of, I believe it only need to be 100 signatures too. So in some of these heavy populous areas, that should not be a hard thing to do. That should have been warning sign number one. But I think Dylan's right. She lost, and when that happens, to these wave babies, you see it happening to Joe Cunningham, I think, in South Carolina as well. It's a problem. It's something that's happened to Republican wave babies in the past. It happened in both 2014 and in the 2010 wave babies. Those who looked for future seats and didn't necessarily always have the best acumen at that, especially if they then proceeded to lose in 2012 or 2016. And it's just something that happens. And even Democrats, non-wave babies, you think about Gwen Graham, who was someone who was kind of touted as a future star in Florida, because of the ungerrymandered districts, was put into a very red district at the time, and obviously that seat flipped, and she was out of government for 2 years, and then she lost to Andrew Gillum in the 2018 governor's primary, and we know how that went from there. So it's for some whatever reason, when you're out of government for 2 years, even if you may have had a very good profile, and Finkenauer certainly had a very good profile, young female, more of a moderate Democrat, certainly someone who had a feel like the old school Iowa Democrats, that's certainly something that doesn't really doesn't seem to play when you're out of government for 2 years and then you lost already to a candidate, Ashley Hinson, back in 2020. So I think that's really the two prime reasons it comes down to here.
Especially, you can't be out of office and not doing anything. You can be at whatever your feelings on her. Stacey Abrams has been out of office for a long time, ran a failed governor's race, but she is kept in the public eye, and she's going to be back in the governor's race. She's going to win her primary despite not holding office in well over 2 years. So you have to remain in the public eye, and Finkenauer just didn't do that.
Well, I think it's important. Finkenauer also got outspent. I wonder kind of how much her heart was really in this race. She jumped in very early when a lot of people thought Grassley was actually going to retire. And I think she jumped in back when there was a lot of hope that maybe, this midterm would buck the historical trend. Lots of candidates do that every single midterm cycle. They are always wrong, and they always end up very sad.
When your campaign requires bucking a 100-year trend to be successful, maybe find a new strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
not just a 100-year trend, a 100-year trend in a state that is trending away from your party.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's a
So
challenge.
I think there was some hope that it was like, oh well, we're gonna jump in and it won't be Grassley, it'll be someone weaker, and it'll be maybe the midterm won't be so bad. And then it was kind of like one of those things where gradually, like it just all fell
it
apart.
went downhill from there.
And I think Franken, look, I mean, I think Franken, he challenged the establishment choice in Greenfield in 2020. I think he legitimately wants to run and wants to run a vigorous campaign, even if he is obviously not going to win. But I think I think he's more in it maybe than she actually is, even though she got all the media attention.
Well, I mean, he was seen as the stronger campaigner last time, so yeah, absolutely, his heart was in it this time. Now he's not going to win. He's not going to come close to winning, but it's better to nominate somebody with their heart in it like him than a former congresswoman who's just doing it to fulfill an obligation.
Yeah, I think Kraz brings up a really good point there. I think when it comes to Finkenauer, I do want to give you guys some updates on some of the results we're continuing to see in here right now. Of course, in Mississippi, we're looking at the 4th district here. Clay Wag plays by about 2 points in Mississippi's 4th congressional district. Stephen Palazzo, again, continuing to hover around 36 percentage points right now. Again, it continually looks like that race is going to be heading to a runoff between Palazzo and one of Clay Wagner or Mike Ezell. It seems increasingly likely in that regard, at least according to DDHQ. We have at least 23% of the vote in right now. Again, Palazzo hovering around 36% of the vote. And then Clay Wagner at 25%, Mike Ezell at 23%, competing for that second place spot. And then in the 3rd district, Michael Cassidy is hovering around 49.3%. Michael guesses right around 43% of the vote. That would put Cassidy under the just barely under the runoff capacity right there. Of course, that would be a big deal in all that regards right now. So that would be, of course, the big surprise. And of course, in Washington, it looks like increasingly likely that Michael Guest, the current congressman from the 3rd district, is going to be at least held to a runoff at this point and potentially even lose outright in the 3rd congressional district of Mississippi to Michael Cassidy, who, as we've already discussed, seems to have certainly a more out there platform. And as well, then in New Mexico, a very good drop just came in, of course, in Bernalillo County in New Mexico. I'm sure I just butchered that. That's where Albuquerque is. But that is where Mark Ronchetti is pretty clearly doing pretty good right now. He is doing pretty well in that regard. He's up 63-15 on his closest challenger in Greg Zanetti right now. Like I said, looking increasingly likely that Ronchetti, as was of course expected, is going to be the Republican nominee for the governor's race in New Mexico. That is certainly going to be, a key race, I think, in New Mexico. We'll hear that from the rest of the panel tonight, but I think with Ronchetti versus Michelle Grisham, I think that could certainly be a very, very interesting race to look at. Another one of these kind of western side governor's races, along with Oregon, that could be more interesting for Republicans than I think maybe some thought. So going into the cycle. So I think those are, with Ronchetti, the nominee, I think we could be in for another interesting gubernatorial race in New Mexico. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's all we're going to say on that. No one else going to say anything about that.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out if Thomas Griffin's normal crazy or crazy.
Who's this Thomas Griffin?
The other candidate in the Cassidy guest race.
Yes, that is crucial. That is a crucial thing to find out.
He's kind of just some dude. His website is very bare bones.
I'm looking through his personal Facebook and he's taking pictures with Mike Flynn's brother, but that can go either way.
I mean, at least it's not the MyPillow guy.
True, but Mike Flynn did do a loyalty oath to Q. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Who's this?
Mike Flynn?
Oh no, Michael Flynn. Oh. Yeah, Michael Flynn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the actual candidate, and I was really, really
No,
scared.
No. Sorry,
No,
sorry
no.
for scaring
That,
you like
that would have
Kathy
been incredibly. That would have been much more concerning.
No, don't worry.
that
Kathy
would've,
Barnett lost.
We do have something here right now, folks. Sorry to interrupt, but it is play taps for the career of Abby Finkenauer. DDHQ was just called the Iowa Democratic Senate primary for former General Michael Franken in that race. So excuse me, we're gonna hopefully we don't get hit on YouTube for this, but we're gonna take a quick 30 seconds here as I bring up taps here on my phone, and as we go across here for this. So
Oh my God!
all right, that's enough fun for tonight. But there we go. Wanted to do that just for some fun.
We
keep it
done
light.
that for.
We keep it light here with serious topics.
Can we? Why didn't we do that for David Purdue?
I don't,
We
because
should have done that for
I
David
didn't think
Purdue.
of it last time.
That
we
loss
should have
didn't deserve it. That
we
loss
should have
didn't
certainly
deserve
done
it.
it for David Purdue. It would have been much fun. We would have gone the full 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That loss. If you lose by 50, you don't deserve to be played out with taps.
Yeah,
That's true. He makes a good point.
No, play the whole tap song. It'll last longer than the election counting lasted before it got called.
Also, just to bring up Brian Kemp again, I want to point out right now that Kristi Noem is doing about as well as Kemp had done in her primary tonight against her no-name opponent right now.
Well,
Just
it's kind of interesting. I do want to point this out that, well, two things I want to point out about South Dakota and more generally. So in two of the South Dakota races, Thune and Johnson, their opponents ran explicitly on them being not Trump-friendly enough, specifically in Johnson's case, voting for the January 6th committee, and in both their cases, not agreeing to certify, not agreeing to ratify the objections of some Republican members of Congress to the electoral votes in Arizona and Pennsylvania. Interestingly, like we've talked about before, these challengers are not getting very far running explicitly on the election alone. In Thune's case, they're only getting about 25% of the vote. And in Johnson's case, it looks like his challenger is going to do better. She's currently at 40% of the vote, but I would imagine
that's probably going to I think other sites are slightly ahead of us on that, and she is down by a much larger
healthier margin. Yeah. So, I think that's fairly interesting that's how it's going. Personally, I think she should have run on the fact that Dusty Johnson kind of looks like he's 12. But if she's going to run, she was.
Wait, hold on. I need to go look up Dusty Johnson now.
I
do have some stuff from New Jersey, though, that's interesting from those two Republican primaries. The 4th district is within 20 points now. 95% of the vote is in. Chris Smith is up 57 to 39. So that's within 20 points. That's probably the best challenge he's had in a while. And then Tom Kean, 25% of the vote in. He's at 52% of the vote. Now, nobody is close to him. The two other no-name candidates that are about 17% of the vote each. But he's definitely down from that 58% we were seeing earlier.
I do want to mention just on that
sorry,
is that none of Somerset County is in yet, which is Kane's home and his base. It is all mostly from other key races here right now.
Also, yes, Dusty Johnson does look 12. You are correct.
And I do want to bring up a report here. Decision Desk HQ has called the New Mexico GOP governor's primary for Mark Ronchetti after that Albuquerque area drop right now. This does potentially set up what we would call a leans Democratic race right now between him and Michelle Grisham in that governor's race this year. Grisham is also dealing with potential scandals of her own related to sexual harassment in her office. With I believe it was an intern or employee. I forget which one it was, but it was a male intern or employee within her office that was basically was found out that she was given money out as a settlement to harassment claims in her office from a male employee or intern. Potentially definitely interesting race right now. Marchetti, of course, became famous in Republican circles for significantly overperforming expectations in that 2020 Senate race against Ben Ray Lujan. He only ended up losing by about 4.5, 5 points in that race. So it'll be really interesting to see what Marchetti does here. He's become famous. He's well known as a weatherman from the Albuquerque area, certainly a more moderate Republican who would fit New Mexico's politics a bit more. So certainly, again, we have that race currently rated right now, leans Democratic right now.
And to be fair, we memed about Mark Ronchetti. We're like, yeah, he's just the weatherman. He's like, it's just Republicans are touting him. No, he's actually a really good candidate, and he did better than any of the major. He did better than South Carolina Democrat. He did better than Al Gross in Alaska. He did better than the Democrat in Montana. He did better than even Mike Espy in Mississippi. Like he basically did better than every single stretch state Democrat, and he did so with basically no money and no support. So that's pretty big. He's a good nominee. New Mexico is a really weird state. It's a really rural state. It's a really Hispanic state. It's got a lot of suburban voters as well around the Albuquerque area. It's got a big natural gas oil industry. That is areas close to Texas. I think we've heard rumors from one of our sources that Republicans may actually outvote Democrats in the primary tonight in New Mexico. That was the model, at least, when you see the actual results. But Republicans are very, very optimistic about New Mexico this time. And with a good candidate like that, it's not a reason not to be optimistic. Ronchetti is a very good candidate. I think that's abundantly clear at this point.
Yeah, don't count out Ronchetti.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on Ronchetti.
Don't sleep on Al Gross either. He's running again after all.
Oh, no. Not again. Not Al Gross again. Please no, sir.
And now he has anti-democratic party cred because they're attacking him.
Oh, dear. That makes it worse. Why must you do that to me, sir?
I'm sorry, but New York keeps getting crazy, so I have to give you pain somewhere.
That's fair. That's an understandable answer. I will accept that.
Thank you.
Do want to mention it's about 9 minutes to 10 o'clock Eastern time right now. I believe Montana will have polls closed at that time. Of course, the big one we're waiting for is 11 p.m. Eastern time. That is when the interesting state of California will drop its poll results. And of course, that is why we love the fact that we have Kraz here. And I do want to answer a question right now. I'm going to actually put it up right now here for you guys right now. When is the Mississippi runoff date? Just confirm me, June 28th. So only 3 weeks away is the Mississippi runoff date. So they only have 3 weeks to campaign in that regards. So right then and there, if we, again, it looks incredibly likely right now in the 4th Congressional District that we will see a runoff in that race between Stephen Palazzo and someone else, and either Clay Wagner or Mike Ezell. And then Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District, we're kind of watching right now whether or not Michael Guest, the incumbent there, can be going, or at this moment, can go to a runoff right now, one would argue, between him and Michael Cassidy in that regard. So 2 very interesting races right now. I also want to give it right now a shout out to New Mexico's 2nd Congressional District right now. In the Democratic side, it looks increasingly likely that Gabriel Vasquez, he's up 79-21 with about 26% of the vote in right now. He seems to be the candidate right now that's going to go up against Yvette Harrell in what will be, again, one of the few Democratic pickup opportunities in that seat for 2022.
Also, not really relevant, but I just want to point out that the New Jersey machine reigns again. They won every single primary, even the New Jersey 8th primary, where Rob Menendez was having scandals of his own, much like his father. He won almost immediately. So the scandal dynasty wins and the machine wins, even though the line might be gone soon. Maybe.
Yeah, I want to actually bring in Eric on this. Eric, I know, is a guy who's followed the kind of the politics of the line before New Jersey. So I kind of want to get his thoughts on maybe some of the what would change in New Jersey if the line ability on the ballot were to disappear, as it seems it could potentially go to if this lawsuit against it succeeds.
Eric, you're muted.
Yeah, so the line, I mean, it's really strong. Basically, it gives the preference of the county party really, really strongly weighs the primary towards party-endorsed candidates, local county party-endorsed candidates. Even in non-competitive primaries where you have, one candidate win pretty handily, if they get a line endorsement, they can win that county. So that's pretty substantial. Losing that,
Eric,
that would take
I am going to interrupt you for a quick second here.
Oh, go right ahead.
Important key primary update right now. In New Jersey, 7th Congressional District, as expected, Decision Desk HQ has now officially called it for Tom Kean Jr. In that 7th District GOP primary right now. Kean Jr. will face off in a 2020 rematch against Tom Malinowski in a district that is redrawn more favorably for Kean than it was drawn, I believe, in 2020 with the redrawn maps. We currently have this race rated as lean Republican right now. One of the couple of races that we have right now that would flip to the Republican Party right now already, as we have rated from Democrats. Tom Kean certainly early favorite right now in that race against Tom Malinowski.
And it's worth noting, Kean, large chunks of this district were not in, more Republican-leaning parts of this district were not in the district when it was existing last time. So that attributes somewhat to Kean doing worse than previous primaries. He's very, very well known New Jersey Republicans. He's, I believe, was the minority leader of the New Jersey Senate for a while. He ran for Senate, ran a pretty respectable campaign for Senate. I believe it was in
2006, my friend.
Yeah, he ran a very respectable campaign. He only lost by 9 points against Bob Menendez in 2006 in New Jersey. Not a bad performance at all. You had actually a lot of Republicans that year, really strong Republicans in blue states finished within 10. I mean, you had, even in Maryland, you had a relatively competitive Senate race there. So part of a string of suburban Republicans like that. But, this new district, it's more Republican. I think we have it. We either have it as a toss-up or leans Republican. Malinowski's really, really in big trouble here. But just to finish what Paulette is saying about the line, if the line goes away, the big problem here for the New Jersey machine is they lose that big opportunity right on the ballot to kind of set their preference. The only other state that has anything remotely similar to this, as far as I know, is Pennsylvania, which just has the county, like the actual county the candidate is from. And that plays somewhat of a controlling influence in a lot of primaries where candidates that are from counties tend to do well in those counties or around them. So, right here, if this changes, you could see some shakeups in New Jersey down the line. But again, the machines in New Jersey, very, very strong on both sides. The Democratic machine, they're very dominant in the state as a whole. The Republicans tend to get their people as well. It would be very surprising to me if that shifts overnight, even if the line goes away.
Did anyone see the video of Mayor Brian Stack literally dragging a huge crowd behind him to get out the vote for Rob Menendez? That's how strong the machine is. He had like a 50 to 100 person crowd walking behind him canvassing for Rob Menendez. I don't think anybody's ever been that excited for Rob Menendez. Even Rob Menendez. No, but like even in races that were only kind of competitive, even kind of known, Imani Oakley was kind of touted by some leftist activists. Donald Payne won 84% of the vote against her. The New Jersey machine is just that strong.
I do want to answer one question we got in the comments here from Aaron Hutton. He says, "Hey guys, do you think Zach Nunn is a favorite to win in November, assuming he wins his primary, which looks likely in Iowa?" He looks like he's going to be the Republican nominee. Oh,
I do want to say that DDHQ has called that primary for Nunn.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Nunn is the presumptive nominee in Iowa's 3rd Congressional District. He'll be going up against incumbent Democrat Cindy Axne. This is a Trump +1 district, I think, 1 or 2 points. I would have to say that he's the favorite, right? I mean, in a Trump 1 district in this kind of year, I haven't looked at the vote totals yet, so I don't know exactly how many primary votes have been cast by each party. It looks like Democrats are outvoting Republicans right now, but we'll see if that holds. But I would
probably because of the Polk County portion, I would think.
Yeah, I would guess that Nunn's the favorite. He starts off at least a slight favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
we do currently have this race rated as a toss-up. But I will say I am writing our June update for the House ratings, starting that tomorrow. So as a heads up, expect that to be potentially one of the changes as a result of these races tonight. I wanted to wait until after California until I started to write that right now. But so tomorrow I'll be starting on that. And it does look, I will say it does look like right now that will be one of the seats that will be changed.
Yeah, I mean,
back down as the nominee.
Yeah, I almost wouldn't feel comfortable labeling anything less than Biden +4 or Biden +5 as favored for Democrats at this point. And it looks like we have another update from Mississippi 3rd.
Go ahead, Dylan. I'll let you go. I'll let you take this on, Dylan. Go right ahead.
Mike Cassidy still up 48.4% of the vote. Michael Guest up 44% of the vote. It looks like Guest's home county Rankin came in for him. He's winning at 60-38. I don't know how early votes are counted in Mississippi, but we have seen that almost universally, except in Georgia, because David Perdue's a meme, that the more conservative candidate gets a higher percentage of the vote as the votes come in.
Yeah, Rankin County is that big suburban county I was talking about, Jackson. It's one to pay attention to.
I'm sorry. Another update. Mike Cassidy back up 51-42. All right. Negate everything I just said.
Cassidy might be kind of a headache for the GOP if he ends up in Congress.
Yeah,
he'd be a massive,
I would say.
Supporting maternal leave, nuclear energy, wanting to ban
all immigration.
For
10 years.
For 10 years, wanting to give newlyweds.
Actually, wait, this is a real plank in his platform, is that he is going to investigate Netflix for their special called Cuties, which I guess was some kind of like pageant show. I'm not really sure what was going on there.
That was the creepy kid sexy movie. But I wouldn't investigate them over it. It's also like 2 years old.
Yeah, it was a French thing that was trying to talk about child exploitation. Did it
by
in a way that
children.
Yeah, did it in a way that U.S. conservatives thought was pretty creepy. I mean,
basically what it was a movie. The idea of the movie is that sexually exploiting children sexually is bad. And it did
Which is a good message.
Basically, yeah, it's a good message. That's a good message. I think like Ben Shapiro actually commented on this, and he actually had the best thing to say about it, which is, again, this message, it's not a bad message. This is a pretty good message. The problem is it's doing so by sexually exploiting children, like having them twerking on screen, and like it's not good. It's not good.
Here's
I wouldn't
investigate them over platform. If you destroy a statue, like if you tear down a statue, 10 years mandatory minimum.
I've been smiling reading his platform for like the last 15 minutes. It's so funny.
Oh dear. I do want to say, Dylan, I just want to bring up right now, I think where we're behind other sites right now of DDHQ is that Rankin County is actually not in currently on DDHQ. I just did a quick check. Rankin is not in, while other sites do have Rankin in. Once those come in on DDHQ, we would expect that Cassidy will be forced again down below 50% of the vote right now. And that I think that would, again, probably put us on a pretty good track potentially for, again, obviously not all the votes counted in right now, but that would seem to put us on a relatively decent track for a runoff between those two candidates.
I mean, again, what I'm saying here is that I still think the craziest thing in that platform is to replace migrant labor with prison labor. That seems really, really bad. That seems like a really, 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 really bad idea.
Are we allowed to curse on here?
Yes, you can curse.
Go right ahead.
Bad shit. That's bad shit. That's bad shit.
Wait, but I also want to say that lest people think that we are ragging on him merely because of these views. It's more just the kind of the roller coaster that is his platform. He wants to give all married couples with children under 10 $250 a month, and then when they reach 10, when they're over 10, $500 a month.
You might want to reverse that.
He wants to create a national maternal leave program that confers on new mothers 5 years of benefits.
That's more generous than I would have proposed, but I'm down.
He wants to ban BlackRock and other investment firms from buying houses and other residential properties, which is a thing you mostly see from left-wing politicians in large American cities. So he is truly all over the map. I think he might just be like some guy who like
some guy is Tom Griffin. Tom Griffin is some guy. Mike Cassidy apparently has ties to prominent conspiracy theorists, which is also not surprising.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently. Oh, here's the funny thing with the prison labor thing, is that to get in the prison labor program to work on the migrant farms, you need to have good behaviors. This is a reward for the prisoners, is to work on the.
Where is that in his platform? Because it's not in
agriculture. It's in
the
agriculture.
I must have missed that.
Yep.
But then right under that, developing summer work programs for teens and young adults at farms subsidized by schools.
This is like a roller coaster of like, this is a roller coaster of like fairly normal conservative things, fairly normal liberal things, really, really ridiculous liberal things, and really, really ridiculous conservative things.
And then just randomly he says we need to do more nuclear energy. Again, good.
Again, it's like that. What was it? What was it? The voter robot, like the tweet account that was like creating like fake voter profiles that were like supports an assault weapons ban, supports abortion, supports immigration, supports the Green New Deal, voted for Donald Trump in 2016.
He's one of those guys.
I maintain that every single one of those voter profiles were real. They were just made up real. Those are real people somewhere. Guaranteed.
No, they were. I think they were real people. I mean, yeah, this is like, I mean, you think this guy is just like, man, it's like so messed up that Amazon is not paying its workers fairly. And then it's like, build the wall. Like, he's just all over the place.
No, it's like, if we got rid of all the illegals, then they'd have to pay their workers more because the labor market would be tightened. Like that's
Yeah. See, my amusement with this is his problem with immigration. He's not trying to couch it in economics because if he were, he wouldn't be supporting prison labor to replace those jobs. No, his problem is purely where they come from.
They vote for Democrats. It's like he says 80% of foreign voters vote for Democrats. Like that's the reason why he doesn't like immigration.
You know what? In a strange way, look, he's insane and I hope he loses, but I do respect his honesty and his forwardness in his insanity. He's not trying to hide it. I respect.
Here's the education section. Let's look at the things on the platform right here. Bans critical race theory from being taught unless it's taught as an example of anti-Americanism. That's the only way you can teach critical race theory. Ban affirmative action.
Honestly, no, bullet point, that first one encapsulates the roller coaster that is this guy's platform.
Yeah, first that's fairly normal conservative.
Sentence.
Normal conservative.
Sentence. Insanity.
Yeah, ban affirmative action. That's normal. Ban affirmative action. That's pretty normal. Ensure teachers host curriculums. Fine. Bans transgender people from bathrooms. Okay, that's a little bit out there. $7,500 tax deduction for homeschoolers. That's kind of weird. And at the bottom, we got to create more trade schools. Like, yeah, that's normal. So like you're just getting a bunch of it's like the mix of things are here. The way they're matter-of-factly stated, they're not stated in like crazy terms. It's just like, yep, this is what I support. This is my platform.
Yeah, he's just an insane guy. He's the Facebook comments section.
Well, Kraz had the best example here. It's like the incomprehensible. Basically just the incomprehensible platform of a 15-year-old populist on Twitter.
Yeah, well, it was like I don't know. I mean, this guy. I mean, it's like he threw darts at the wall. I do want to say that if I can bring our attention to some other results in South Dakota. So it looks like Amendment C is going to truly go down to a large defeat. It's still down 70-30, with now, according to DDHQ, 37% of the vote in. It's failing in essentially every single county. I mean, I don't know why politicians keep putting on ballot measures that would take away power from voters. You know, like voters are a notoriously self-interested and narrowly focused group. I don't think they
hey, voters, give us more power.
Also, also it was this was a controversial amendment from the start. It only got on the ballot by one vote in the state Senate, because some Republicans expressed concern about this feels like gaming the system. Like, we don't want to, whatever.
I'm sorry, Kraz,
yeah.
I need to point this out.
Yeah.
They passed an amendment to increase the threshold to 60% by 50 plus 1.
Yeah. So what happened was, and I think this probably has something to do with it. Like, Medicaid expansion, as Eric said, is undefeated in ballot measures so far. And so I think that if you were a betting man, you would bet that it's probably going to pass in South Dakota in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And this ballot measure used surgical precision to make it so it had to hit 60 in the fall. So it was worded in such a way that it was clearly targeted toward the Medicaid expansion. And I would assume that maybe rubs some voters the wrong way. Made them think like they were trying, the state Senate or the state legislature were trying to game the system. But
that's the concern that was in North Carolina as well, was that, like, on paper, I don't disagree with some of the ideas that were on those two referendums. I like the idea of the Board of Elections in each county being bipartisan and not having a 3-2 commission where the third member is appointed by the governor's party. That's a pretty decent idea, I think. I'm not against the idea of the legislature, the governor putting up judicial nominees and the legislature, voting them up or down. I don't think that's a necessarily horrible idea. Did I vote for either of those two amendments? No, because it was a power grab. I didn't like what they were doing there. And pretty much every other former governor in the state, including Pat McCrory and Jim Martin, were like, hey, you should not vote for this. The governor's already pretty weak. Like, you really want to give more power to the legislature here? And I was like, no. And I mean, if it were up to me, ballot initiatives would be 60% plus 1. I don't like the idea of radically reforming government policy because 50% plus 1 of voters decided to bullet train in California was a good idea, or decided, that we like. I don't think doing policy that way is a good idea. Would I have voted for this amendment? I'm honestly not sure, because it does limit the ability of people to at least check. I mean, I don't know. I think there's valid reasons why someone would look at this, even if you're a Republican, and say, this isn't a good idea. Clearly, voters seem to agree, given they're voting it down 60 to 30.
Yeah, and I am sad we're not going to get one of our patented California ballot measures tonight. They're all going to be in November, which is so sad. We've had some crazy ones, including banning all pork products from the state, practically. Forcing actors in pornographic films to wear condoms. And then we actually had one year in 2016 where there were 2 on the ballot, and it was abolishing the death penalty and speeding up the death penalty to take away appeals from defendants on the same ballot. And they had to come up with a procedure for what would happen if both passed.
Hold on, now you've piqued my interest. What procedure did they come up with?
I don't know. It was limiting their appeals, right? Because obviously defendants on death row get a ton of appeals, which is why it takes so long to execute them. And so there were 2 measures. One was abolish the death penalty, and the other was like, nope, like that's it. Like, you're going down. Just
throw them out there.
We're not wasting time. Yeah. And what was funny about this is that it wasn't, if I remember correctly, and I'll check this right now. I don't think they were mere images of each other. So like, that means that there were literally people who voted, yes, I would like to abolish the death penalty, and yes, I would like to speed it up and execute people faster. Unfortunately,
honestly, that's not an incomprehensible position. It's like, yeah, we need to abolish the death penalty, but let's execute everyone on death row first. Like, I can see how that's a position someone might have. Like, it's technically incomprehensible if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, but
yeah, I'm sad that
but voters are incomprehensible.
No, I mean, the California ballot initiatives, they're crazy. It's not just that, it's also California is a state that's routinely voting 60-40 Democrat, 63 or 65-35 Democrat. Also, if there's any sort of tax measure on the ballot, usually like voters are like, no. They voted against affirmative action. They voted against the actor condom thing, I think, or did they vote for it? That was a weird.
No, they voted against it. They voted against it.
That would have.
Yeah,
I
but-
feel like that would have had some Supreme Court problems.
Maybe, but it was. I mean, the whole thing was just like hilarious. Like it was like it's on the ballot, and like people are trying to talk about it with like all these euphemisms on the news, right? It's like no one wants to be like say what it really is here at elections day. But it was like on the local news, they were trying to like dance around. They were like, oh, adult film stars will have to take certain safety measures. Yeah, that one failed by a few points.
Yeah,
certain safety measures. They'll have to wear safety goggles.
Yeah, like here's another. Here's Prop 15. Prop 15 would have raised taxes to fund education, and California voted no. There are some red states that would probably be voting yes on a referendum to raise property taxes in exchange for funding education more. Oklahoma literally did that several years ago with the legislature. That's not, as far as votes, tax increases go. I oppose almost every tax increase. I would have voted against that, but I could see, voters voting, it's a blue state. Nope, they voted against it by 3 points.
California really is the definition of, yeah, you can do that, but I'm not gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
the rent control initiative failed by 20 points in California. It's a weird state. I love seeing these crazy ballot initiatives because they're super I'm super sad to break up California into 5 states. One didn't make the ballot. That would have been really fun to see how the votes.
That was tough to not see make the ballot. I mean, so and then tonight in San Francisco.
Whoa!
What do you got, Dylan? What do you got, Dylan? That was a big whoa. What do you got?
Yes wins its first county in the South Dakota amendment. It got its first one.
Wave the American
county?
Flag.
It's winning Douglas County. It's winning Douglas County 52-48.
God bless America.
I will also say tonight we have in San Francisco, we have one ballot measure that will recall the DA, Chesa Boudin, and we have another ballot measure which will make it much harder to recall elected officials. So we'll see how that goes.
You laugh, but I could see people voting for both of those.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I think that one, the second one, got on the ballot after people were mad about the school board recall. But I think it was kind of out of touch because the school board recall pass was 75%, so there couldn't have been that many people that were that mad about the result.
One of the reasons, was some of these was the school board was, I believe, if I recall it, specifically hostile to Asian people, and members of the school board have been caught using racial slurs. It's like
so the Asian community has played a big role in these recent recalls. Like I said, they tend to be a little bit more ideologically conservative. They're not Republican, obviously, but the most heavily Asian
temperamentally conservative.
Yeah, temperamentally conservative, and I think there tends to be a feeling that with the school board recall, I think it kind of scratched a lot of deeper wounds about like how Asian Americans are thought of in, particularly progressive media. I think there was some comments from some of the school board members that, oh, why do these Asians care? They're really just white. They're white passing. They're basically white people. And so there are some.
Don't say that.
But so I think
if you're an elected official, I would not recommend.
Right.
Don't say that as a human being either.
Just in general.
A deeper.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say like a deeper divide about like how I think maybe white progressives in the city think about race and how maybe other groups think about race. And I think that was particularly bad. And I think with Chesa Boudin, he hasn't said anything like that, obviously, but I think the incidents where it looked like there was racially targeted violence against Asian Americans, and either the person wasn't prosecuted or they were arrested and then released. I think that also scratched those wounds to a certain extent.
So I've been reading more of the incredible platform Michael Cassidy put out, and I want to point out a couple things that I feel are probably unconstitutional. Ban all lobbying on behalf of foreign countries, corporations, or individuals.
Ooh.
Reinstitute the civil service exam for bureaucrats. And then one that's not constitutional but insane: give freedom to every nonviolent prisoner charged for January 6th.
Honestly, when you started that and said freedom for every nonviolent prisoner, I actually had no idea whether you were going to say January 6th or drug offenses, because that's just kind of
Why not both?
that's kind of the split this guy's platform had.
It's Mad Libs. It's literally
Why
Mad
not?
Libs.
Why not both? We can upset Eric on both sides.
That's pretty good. That is pretty good. I will not lie.
Also, 58% of the vote in Mississippi 3rd. Michael Cassidy only up 58.5 to 45.3.
48.5, my friend.
48.5 sorry.
Yeah. The question, if this goes to a
it's looking
runoff, is
increasingly
again,
likely that race is heading to a runoff as well.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see who Thomas Griffin endorses, because obviously, Thomas Griffin is just a guy. At the same time, I can imagine a lot of Republicans actually looking at Michael Cassidy's platform and being like, this is really weird. This is a really, really weird platform. I'm not sure I like this.
Well, see, the Thomas Griffin's hard to nail down because his website quite literally doesn't have a policy platform. So I have no idea what he supports beyond what I've seen on his Facebook page, which is no mandates for anything, free the people from January 6th, which feel like Michael Cassidy positions, but...
So given that we have kind of a break in the action here for a while, is there anything else we'd like to talk about in the election world? In particular, I do want to bring some attention to the drama in the South Carolina gubernatorial election on the Democratic side.
Can we bring some attention to Florida as well?
Yeah. So here is some. So we have a little break in the action here. So we're gonna run through some good drama. So I guess the speaker of the the minority leader of the South Carolina House of Representatives, a Democrat, endorsed Joe Cunningham, the ex-congressman, in his bid to unseat or to become South Carolina governor. That apparently ruffled the feathers of Mia McLeod, who is running against Joe Cunningham, and she is currently in the South Carolina House of Representatives. And so she screenshotted the endorsement and said, "Birds of a feather. Good old Todd endorses Joe because I refuse to appoint his unqualified new wife as a Richland County magistrate. Wait, it gets better. Now he can go back to barely holding on as minority leader, funding his mom-in-law's nonprofit with state money, and using the state plane as his personal vehicle." To which Todd Rutherford responded, "Wow, the first thing you do is attack a black woman? My wife met all the qualifications to be a magistrate, passed the test twice, yet you echo the same attacks used by racists to undermine all black women as unqualified." And then she went really scorched earth and quote tweeted him and said, "Next time, you probably shouldn't cheat with and marry the babysitter. How's that for disrespecting black women? And since you know so much about MIA, maybe you can tell the people of South Carolina why you were MIA when the South Carolina GOP gerrymandered your House members out of their own districts." So we've got some pretty serious drama in the race to lose to Henry McMaster by 18%.
Yay!
Really high stakes stuff.
Speaking of drama to eventually lose the general election, that's insanity.
That's a roller coaster ride.
That's a roller coaster of emotions right there.
Yeah, Nikki Fried's in some hot water as well.
Yeah, what was this? Let's hear it. I'm a sucker for some good intra-party drama.
We gotta make this a segment. We gotta make this like an election drama show or something.
Hey, I'm
Beef
down.
Report.
Beef report, yes, and we can eat beef. So Nikki Fried, one of her senior campaign staffers, called out a state senator. I'm totally forgetting her name. Anna. I'm gonna look it up.
Eskrami. Wait.
Yeah.
She's a congresswoman, right?
No, she's a state
senator. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
Called her an off-brand AOC, and attacked her, I guess, for not supporting Nikki Fried. Nikki Fried said, in response to somebody on Twitter asking if she was going to apologize, Yes, I handled that privately. And Anna responded, so privately, I never heard about it.
Ooh. Oh yeah.
Wait, so I do want to answer. Someone asked in the comments an actual question about real results for someone who might actually win their election. Aaron Hutton asked, so judging by the outstanding vote in Mississippi 3rd, looks like a lot of Rankin County. Do you think it's possible Guest holds on? My view on this is that most of Cassidy's good areas are in, or mostly in, or almost entirely in. Guest has a lot of votes out in Rankin. However, it's not going to be enough to get him 50%. He might come out ahead of Cassidy before the runoff, but he's not hitting 50%. And I will say that while most of Cassidy's good areas are in, it's not like they're all 95%. Like there's still a lot of counties that have 30% left to report, 25% left to report. So I think the result you're looking at right now is probably going to be pretty close to the final margin, unless the results in Rankin are like really, really amazing for Guest. Like unless he's hitting 63% of the voting Guest, in Rankin the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, there are still a couple, like 3, it seems like 3 or 4 rural counties for Cassidy still left to report. So he's definitely not out of it. I mean, is Guest in a better position than he was? Probably. But I would be surprised if he hits 50%. Plus, no basis for this, but I think that margin in Rankin is going to close because as the votes come in, typically the more conservative candidate gets a higher percentage. Though I guess in this case, conservative is, unless you're Georgia, conservative in this case might be relative. Somebody asked, have you all looked at how low the turnout is in California? Good for Caruso. I would actually say that's probably good for Bass, if anything. She has the rank and file Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, most of the Democratic establishment. So if turnout's low, that means the machine is who's driving the turnout.
Actually, have we talked about that LA mayor race? We should actually go into a little bit more detail on that because that is an interesting election.
I know that Kim Kardashian, the person I listen to, endorsed Caruso for mayor, so I don't think we need to go deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean,
Kim K has spoken.
Kim K, KP, Elon Musk. No, we can go more into that. So you've got Rick Caruso, a former Republican billionaire who changed parties to be a Democrat. You can have your own opinions as to why he did that. I certainly do. Then you have only 2 other candidates that really matter, Karen Bass and Kevin De Leon. Karen Bass has all of the major endorsements. Nancy Pelosi, I believe most of the Democratic congressional representatives, if not all. And then there's Kevin De Leon, who I don't know why he's running. I appreciate that he's running.
He just has to run for office.
No, it's because California has some of the strictest term limits in America, which is why he ran against Dianne Feinstein, because he was termed out as Senate leader and he had nothing else to do with his time. Like, I think for some of these people, they just don't have anything else to do.
You were a former politician. Go be a lobbyist. That's what most of you do.
The problem is that, I mean, it's actually amazing how many retreads we get in California politics for a state that has what, like 35 million people. Like we get as way more retreads than you would expect. Largely because of these term limits, right? So, people just cycle in and out and in and out and out. Like this is in the insurance commissioner race. So Mark Levin, who represents Marin County, the incredibly wealthy San Francisco suburb, he's turned down, I think. And so he's just running for insurance commissioner. Why insurance commissioner? I have no idea. Is there anything wrong with Ricardo Lara? Like, I don't think Democrats have any problems with him. So he's just running to run. So like these people, I mean, it's just like,
Look,
but that's the funny thing is the system California has encourages this because you have this multi-party primary. You actually have pretty good odds of making the ballot if you're a second Democrat in a lot of these areas. there's not going to be any multi-party competition. So, why not run?
Look, I'm as much of a policy nerd as anyone here, but who spends their lives wanting to run for insurance commissioner? I just want to
Steve Poizner.
Well, Steve Poizner, yes. Also, Laura did view it, I think, as a springboard to bigger things because he ran on a platform of Medicare for all in 2018, which is funny because that's actually like not within the insurance commissioner's power in any realm ever. It's like the insurance commissioner like keeps track of like the insurance companies in California and like flags potential fraud, like and so
clearly having heavy involvement in the decision of Medicare for all.
Yeah, exactly. And now I think he's running on something about like insurance for abortions or something. Again, not in his purview at all. But when you run for a meaningless
also
office,
not really a thing.
Can we get, I think we can have a moment of unity between the different ideologies on this panel and saying term limits suck.
Yeah.
Term limits are dumb.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. But actually, now that I think about it, in North Carolina, you had Mike Causey, who ran for insurance commissioner on the Republican side, like basically every cycle from 1992 until he got elected. And then
that's the Rocky De La Fuente strategy.
And then you had Wayne Goodwin. Wayne Goodwin, who after he got elected, called him a perennial candidate. And then Mike Causey was like, "Nope, I am the insurance commissioner now. I'm no longer a perennial candidate."
God bless the state of North Carolina. God bless the South.
We have 10 row offices and nobody knows what half of them do.
Hooray! Again, wave the flag. Wave the flag. God bless America. Ooh.
I like also how there's like in North Carolina, I've come to appreciate how there are all these like kind of powerless offices, but there's still differences in how they perform. Like there are literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of voters in the state who are like, God, Elaine Marshall, she just is so good at stamping those business registrations as Secretary of State. Like I'm going to 4 more years for Elaine Marshall. Then they get down the list and they're like, God, Josh Dobson, he would look great in my elevators. Like Dobson for labor commissioner.
Mark, you know what?
North Carolina, Robinson.
The typical North Carolina man, Roy Cooper. I've really liked Roy Cooper as governor, but I think you should have this guy, Mark Robinson, this cool black pastor-esque guy as his lieutenant governor who's a Republican.
He likes
I
guns.
think that could be really cool.
There's a substantial number of voters in North Carolina who are going to be like, Roy Cooper, funding for education, pro-choice Democrat, absolutely. And they'll get to Mark Robinson and be like, oh yeah, ban gay Americans from being teachers. Amen to that. Like Mark Robinson for governor.
Again,
like,
bring out
it's
the
like
flag.
it's unbelievable to me.
My favorite is the treasurer. Because the other 2 candidates, you had our current treasurer, Dale Falwell, who was elected because the previous treasurer, he has the endorsement of labor unions in the state because he basically manages the pension very well. The Democrat was like, I'm going to reposition all of our assets into sustainable businesses. And then Charlotte was like, no, you don't. Because if you look at the new 14th district, which is designed as a vote sink, he only lost that like by 6 points. Like he substantially overperformed in Charlotte and in Charlotte only. He did not do the sort of ridiculous substantial underperformance anywhere else. He just did it where all the banks are, which is what I find.
See, he should run in New Jersey. He would overperform everywhere. He'd be the God King.
But that's the funny thing is we have these row offices. California has a bunch of these row offices too. Like how many people could tell you what a comptroller does, right? I mean, it's an office that exists. But like Secretary of State here does not manage elections. They just stamp business registrations. It's like there's very little things the Secretary of State can do. It's honestly kind of impressive how powerless the office is. The lieutenant governor can't really do anything. The lieutenant governor can't really do anything because the Democrats took all the powers away in the 90s. And so all they've done is just elect a bunch of really conservative Republicans at it pretty much ever since 2008. It's like row offices are fun. I really love these row office races because they're just so ridiculous.
Do you want another great ridiculous race? So in California, I want everyone on this panel to take a guess at how many candidates are running for governor. How many candidates are on the primary ballot? Let's all take
12.
guesses.
12. I'm going to go 12.
12 for Joe. Okay.
I'm going to cheat.
No, you can't cheat. No, you have to guess. I want
Don't
everyone
cheat.
to guess.
Ooh.
14. I'm going to guess 14.
14 for Eric. Dylan, what's your guess?
I'm going to split the difference, 13.
You are all so low. It's 28.
Oh, no.
God bless America.
Bring out the flag again. Well,
Why does
California
anyone
flag, since they're one of the only states in the union to do that type of dipshittery?
Why are they fighting so hard for the honor of losing to Gavin Newsom by 30 points?
Because that's how you get money, Dylan. You can get money. Larry Elder proved
money.
Stupid commentators will retweet you, and they will get other stupid followers to give you money.
The real reason is I think a lot of these people are just taking one for the team so that Republicans have someone on the ballot.
I am joking when I say that is the more accurate case, is that we do want someone statewide so that way Republicans, just have a reason to turn out to vote against people like Gavin Newsom.
Right, because there is a concern, I think, in these jungle primaries that if it's if it's two Democrats, it's not going to be two Democrats for governor this time, but if it's two Democrats for Senate, two Democrats for Secretary of State, two Democrats, for everything, that turnout for Republicans will be lower than normally would have been, and they'll lose winnable races. So really, these people are just taking.
It's totally understandable.
I do have an update.
Dylan.
From Mississippi 3rd, 61% in. Cassidy's margin increased a little bit, 48.7 to 45.1. He improved his margin in Rankin County. He's losing at 56.41 right now, which is better than the 60 to 38 that he was losing it by.
Yeah. But back to what I'd say about California is, I don't necessarily know if there's a legitimate correlation between I don't know if, for example, there's a Republican on the Senate in 2018. If Republicans win a couple of House districts, they lost. I don't think that's a really likely possibility. What I will say is that when there are two Democrats on the ballot, a lot of Republicans don't vote. Like anywhere from 12% of the electorate to 15% just does not vote. And that's basically amounting to 25 to 33% of the Republican vote in California. And when they do vote, it's either for really weird, most of them went for Kamala Harris in 2016 for some reason, even though Loretta Sanchez was literally running a campaign that was tailored at crossover appeal from Republicans, did not materialize into anything. And then in 2018, they voted for Kevin DeLeon because reasons. It's really weird.
If only more of them had done it.
I think it's really bad for democracy. I know there are people who really disagree with me on this. I know Adam in particular was like, this is actually really good to give you an opportunity if you're a Republican in a blue district to choose a more moderate Democrat. The problem with that is that, one, I am a Republican. I would not vote if the election was between two Democrats in almost all likelihood, because that's not an election that's appealing to me. But also California, when the California Democratic Party endorses a nominee, or rather the machine does, because the California Democratic Party endorsed Kevin DeLeon, the voters vote for the machine candidate. They don't vote for the anti-establishment candidate. They vote for the Democrat that has the support of Democrats. So if you're the Democrat running for Republican appeal, you're going to lose Democrats, and you're likely not going to get that many Republicans voting for you because you are a Democrat. It doesn't make a lot of sense as an electoral strategy. I think it's a really flawed method, and I think it's really disservice to voters when you have these elections, which can honestly be barely qualified as elections, between two candidates of the same party. I just really aggressively dislike that on so many levels.
So I agree and disagree. I think if you have a runoff system like this, or if you have a jungle primary runoff system like this, you shouldn't artificially allow. So if two Democrats are the higher vote getters, or two Republicans are the higher vote getters in this process, I don't think you should artificially say, okay, but one Republican gets on the ballot. But at the same time, I'd also be in favor of splitting the ballot and just having regular primaries again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a runoff system like this, I definitely don't support saying, okay, it has to be one Democrat and one Republican.
That's probably not legal. That probably wouldn't be legal. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be legal to do it that way.
No, I doubt it.
I do. Wait. What were you suggesting? Where you do the jungle primary, but the highest from each?
Yeah, I was saying I don't like that.
No, we used to do that. We used to do that. Joe, do you have an update?
Oh, and that's what the court
what
ruled illegal.
are we talking about right now? Where are we
Do
looking
you have an
at?
update?
Not currently. No.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I was gonna say, I did want to bring one attention that Ryan Zinke, the ex-Trump administration official, might lose his comeback bid for Montana's first congressional district to Al. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Joe, how do you pronounce that?
Al, what is this? Is it about the Montana man?
Yeah.
Al Olszewski. Al Olszewski.
Olszewski. Yeah.
Oh, is this Polish name?
That's yeah.
Al Olszewski.
Yeah, that's what you're here for.
What do you mean that's what I'm here for?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So anyway, I just think that would be actually very funny if he lost, because this is a guy who represented all of Montana, could have easily, he would have been the presumptive nominee against John Tester in 2018, would have had a really good chance of being a senator, gave it up to go be Secretary of the Interior, proceeded to disappear into complete obscurity before getting caught up in an ethics scandal, and then resigning. Which, at this point in politics, and why do you even resign? Ethics scandals aren't real, so I don't know why he resigned.
Yeah,
but he resigned and is now attempting a comeback bid in Montana's new congressional district, and might lose to a somewhat random state senator.
Honestly, I'm not sure if that's good or bad for Republicans.
I do want to mention.
Oh,
I do want to mention about Olszewski. He's not necessarily a random state senator. He's run for other positions before. He's run statewide before, I believe. If I look at it, if I look up the name here, I believe I don't think he's ever won any of them before, but he's run for statewide positions before. In terms, he ran in 2018 in the primary election there for that United States Senate election, came in 4th place, but got 18% of the vote statewide. Again, he ran in 2020. Again, got around 19% of the vote statewide. But this is a guy who, again, he has run before. He hasn't done particularly well statewide, but he's run before. He's got his name out there in that regards. So, again, certainly not necessarily a, totally ending thing right there. The fact that we kind of do right now see this, what seems to be right now, shaping out to be potentially significantly close. Again, another significantly closer race than maybe what we were expecting going into the night in that GOP primary there in Montana's 1st district.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a fun night. I've had fun tonight. I think we've had fun tonight. This has been more fun than I previously expected, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, one way to look at this is that Montana voters are notoriously not fans of unethical government. They're very, in terms of like specific issues and like accountability and they tend to lean more liberal on government accountability issues. And so it wouldn't surprise me if a Montana electorate looked at Ryan Zinke and said, well, the last thing he was involved in was an ethics scandal. Not a huge fan of that.
You want to talk about idiosyncratic government officials. The governor before Steve Bullock supported Medicare for all and loved assault weapons. So that's Montana for you.
It's not, people think, when they think populist, they tend to think of like the generic like 15-year-old populist on Twitter who's really obsessed with fertility and birth rates. No, actually, like just populist in American politics in general just meant really weird positions, like supporting Medicare for all and assault weapons, or wanting to restrict immigration while also supporting other, like it means a bunch of very weird positions. Not a specific
Sherrod Brown, not Blake Masters.
Yeah, Sherrod Brown is a lot closer to what a typical populist would be. Or on the Republican side, you would have people like Jim DeMint, who was running on a very fiscally conservative platform. That would be like the conservative populist back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird. Populism is not like an actual thing. It's just it's a term that has been applied to things. And trying to
whatever I support is populism, and the more I support it, the more populist it is.
Yes, basically. Like nothing is more populist than having an AR-15. That's the most populist thing ever. But also, like free healthcare for everyone and education also being a thing are like they're also really populist. And a bunch of other unsavory, more racist things if you look at like Southern populists, but that tends to be kind of forgotten somewhat.
Mm-hmm. No, this has been a lot more fun than I expected. Because honestly, when you said all we were gonna have were Mississippi and New Jersey until 11 o'clock, I was like, oh God, what are we gonna do?
That's why we pushed it back. That's why I think we made the very wise decision on my decision to push this thing back to 9 o'clock. I think this has given us a little bit more leeway to talk about some more fun stuff while not having no elections to talk about.
Yeah, I think it was probably a good decision because, like, nothing against the state of New Jersey. It's just
no,
like,
please say anything against New Jersey you want. We're a bad state.
Central Jersey does not exist. Central Jersey is not a thing.
No, it doesn't. It's a myth.
They call we actually tangent on this. Did you know they have so many different names for just like the sliced pork on your bagel? First off,
yes,
it's
infuriating.
Like North Jersey's like, oh, it's Taylor ham. It's clearly Taylor ham. What does that mean? I have no idea. Where does Taylor come? No idea.
I don't know what a Taylor ham is supposed to be. It's called a pork roll.
Yeah. And then Southern Jersey is like, no. Are you kidding me? It's a pork roll. It's a pork roll.
It's like it's pork on a roll of bread. I don't know how much more obvious it gets.
God save your soul if you walk in somewhere and say the wrong term. Like if you walk in and say Taylor ham in Southern Jersey, like you better get out of town fast. Like there is no one's saving you.
About the only rough equivalent would be going to Lexington, North Carolina, and asking where you can find the best vinegar-based barbecue or mustard-based barbecue sauce around. That'd probably be the rough equivalent.
It's like doing what Cal Cunningham did.
Yes,
historically sexy. If we're talking about
somebody asked
pork.
DDHQ says Keene is losing. Yeah, that's a tabulation.
Yeah, that's not a thing. Yeah,
that's a tabulation error, my friends.
What about the pork?
I said if we're talking about pork related products here, all I want to say is that we want to talk about true Pennsylvania things here. I want to bring this up right now. The true Philadelphia sandwich is not the cheesesteak. Okay? The true Philadelphia sandwich is a roast pork sandwich with broccoli rabe that you get at a place in Reading Terminal Market called the Knicks. If you're ever in Philadelphia, you got to go to the Reading Terminal Market. You get a slice of pizza for breakfast, and then for lunch, you go to the Knicks Pork and you get a roast pork sandwich. And it is legitimately the best thing you will eat all day.
Okay, this will get me yelled at by everyone from California. That's a much better sandwich than the cheesesteak. Cheesesteaks are bad, and I don't know why we're so obsessed with them.
Because people do them wrong. You don't do cheese whiz on cheesesteaks. That's actually the worst way to do a cheesesteak.
Yeah, that's disgusting, and everyone who does that should be arrested.
You do a cheesesteak, it's got to be a big Italian roll. It has to be provolone cheese, the cheesesteak, and then the actual chopped ribeye, and then grilled onions.
Yes,
that's what it has to be. Your thing is we put all this fake cheese in it. No, that's stupid. Don't do that shit. No. What you do? Big Italian roll. You put provolone cheese on there. If you're making a cheesesteak at home, you put the cheese on there. You put it in the toaster in the oven for like 2 minutes. You take it out. The cheese is melted. Chopped ribeye, onions, and you have a very good cheesesteak. No peppers, no marinara sauce on it. None of that bullshit. It's cheese, steak, and onions. That's what it is.
So, Joe, you're not going to like Wikipedia because Wikipedia's image of a cheesesteak is like the rough equivalent of the Brooklyn barbecue. It's literally just a picture of a cheesesteak. It's a picture of really badly shredded steak in a mediocre bun with cheese whiz on it.
It's not.
Does it have peppers on it? If it has peppers on it, that's worse.
No, it just has cheese whiz. It doesn't have onions.
I do want to say something.
Got to have the onions on there.
Somebody asked what's going on in Mississippi right now. So we're kind of still just waiting for more results from Rankin for the 3rd district. In the 4th district, We have Steve Palazzo is being forced to run off. It's unclear whether or not he's going to be facing Ezel or Clay Wagner. That being said, he is probably a dead man walking. If you get 32% in your primary as an incumbent, you are almost certain. You should just save everyone the time.
He's Madison Cawthorning it. He's Madison Cawthorning it.
Yeah,
No,
you should just save everybody the time.
Hey, wait.
Here.
Joe, you look happy.
Plan for Stephen Palazzo, everyone. 32% in his primary. Whee!
32%. I mean, I hope there are some nice golf courses around Biloxi because that's mostly what he's going to be doing at this point.
Does he have other
Benny,
things to worry about? Like I'm pretty sure like the stuff that's going on is like pretty bad. Like I don't know if he's going to really be able to do that.
Yeah, I think the potential financial corruption thing might be bad. I think giving campaign funds to your family businesses, I think that's a pretty big no-no, I think.
Well, look, on the bright side, if there's one thing they let you do in white-collar prison, it's take breaks to go golfing. So
Yeah,
I think that even if he ends up there, he'll be hitting the tees.
Also, Benny W121 says it's Taylor Ham. Your naming conventions are silly. I don't even know what that means. Why is it a Taylor Ham? Why Taylor? That doesn't make sense. It is
it named after Taylor?
It is a piece of pork on a roll of bread. Simple words. Cheese steak, pork roll.
But what exactly is this tail? Like you're saying, is there a need for a term for pork on bread?
Apparently there is a big fight.
Like here, it would just be like we'd have like. I mean, I get a country ham biscuit, and that's just what it's called because it's a country ham on a biscuit. Like we just have that makes sense. That's the name everyone can agree on.
I don't have any trouble with that.
The country ham sandwich. If it's a breakfast sandwich, that's a thing. Like I don't know. That just seems kind of weird to me.
I don't.
Also,
you
can't feel your own gas.
It should be called what it is because it's pork sandwich. That's all it is in Pennsylvania. It is pork sandwich. It is pork in a sandwich form, and that's all it is. That's all that needs to be said. None of these crappy regional names for it. We saved that for our Amish goods, like here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We saved that for our Amish goods, and our tasty, delicious treats. Like shoe fly pie.
Eric, you're muted.
Eric, you're muted. You gotta turn on the mic.
Yeah, no, we have Mennonites around here in North Carolina, and they make the best donuts. There's like this Mennonite donut thing.
You gotta have good potato donuts. You gotta find good. If you're up here in Central Pennsylvania, you gotta find a place that has good potato donuts.
I haven't been in North Carolina in a while.
Don't doubt me. Potato donuts are good.
Last time I was in North Carolina, we had donuts. They are good.
Yeah, but these are donuts made like fresh by Mennonites. Like they have like the long skirts and like.
I don't know if we got them from Mennonites.
No, you probably got them from Krispy Kreme, which is very, very good as well. But we have like this, they'll post on Facebook, like, hey, we got the donuts coming like this weekend at this parking lot, and you can come and get them, and they're great.
Can I just point something out from New Jersey? I don't know. Pulazdis Park, Mayor Chris Chung lost re-election after being dropped from the line.
Ooh. That's pretty impressive.
An incumbent got dropped from. He lost 616 votes to 451 votes.
Yeah, you don't know the power of the line. Like it is serious.
A power of a line.
No, literally, an incumbent lost because the line dropped him. That is how powerful it is.
Do not underestimate the power of the line.
Benny asked again, where am I from? I'm in Norcross's district.
Wait, can we also, I just want to circle back to this because I mentioned tonight to Joe that when we have a lull in results like right now, we should talk about what's the most surprising result so far for each party. I think the answer for Republicans is obviously guessed potentially losing or at least being forced to a runoff. But I think for Democrats, at least outside Iowa, I mean, Finkenauer getting like, I mean, she's losing by it's like 17, 16 points now. I mean, like, I know we talked about the reasons why she might have. Hart wasn't really in it, etc. But that's a
Still shouldn't have done that badly.
she's losing her old district. I mean, like, it's not even close. She's actually winning. You know, I'm gonna make a bet here. She's only winning a bunch of counties on the edge of the state, on the borders. So randomly on the eastern border and the western border, she's somehow winning a bunch of counties. She was outspent heavily by Franken. I would be willing to bet a lot of money that those edge counties line up with out-of-state media markets, where Franken probably didn't spend. So it looks like probably everywhere where he ran ads, he won. So he will. I mean, we have this at Safe R, right?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
If
we're not
there's a
gonna-
rating safer than safe, I think we should put Iowa there.
I actually think we should start. I think for races like this, we should start making lines as to whether or not Kraz is going to win every county in Iowa. I think that's probably the more exciting bet on this one.
That's very true.
Then which way it's going to turn out?
I'll take yes. I think he'll get every. Well, no.
No. Things are too partisan now, right? And you've got like Lynn County as Iowa City. Like it's too, you know.
Franken's not a horrific candidate.
No, he's not horrific, but I'd still have Kraz like plus 450 to win every county.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see, checking the results again.
I don't think much has changed.
No. The percentage keeps ticking up, the percentage in, but the margin's not changing.
I do want to say here that DDHQ, we do have a call in Mississippi's 4th Congressional District. Stephen Pallot, we have not called it yet officially for a second contender, but we do officially confirm now we are heading to a runoff in Mississippi's 4th Congressional District, at least according to DDHQ. Stephen Palazzo is heading to being forced into a runoff. We are confirming that from DDHQ. Stephen Palazzo forced into a runoff Mississippi's 4th Congressional District. That runoff will be on June 28th.
Hold on. I'm sorry. We have an update on the New York Times.
We do have an update on the Times.
Michael Guest up 51-43 over Cassidy.
Rankin, big league dropping Rankin.
Rankin came in hard.
You gotta watch Rankin. Rankin's a big
he's
county.
up 68-30 with 76% in.
Yeah, this Rankin is like that. I mean, that's a huge county when you're looking at votes coming out of it. Rankin is that's really important for.
I still don't think Guest gets above 50.
What? Wait. Excuse me? What happened?
Yeah,
are we sure that number is correct?
According to the New York Times, Guest kicked up to 51.2.
What?
After a huge drop in Rankin County.
This would be such a. I mean, wow.
That'd be so boring.
This would be an anticlimactic conclusion.
That'd be so boring.
Did the House GOP caucus drive down to Mississippi and stuff the ballot boxes in Rankin? Like, what happened? I mean, they were taking a while to count their votes. So, like, were we? Is there some ballot box stuffing? How many mules?
Free and fair elections. Free and fair elections, baby.
Like, look, don't get me wrong. I am very thrilled if this is the case that we're not getting someone who is a platform that is basically just literally just throwing a dart at the board and whatever it lands on is the position you're taking. At the same time, this would be chaos if you won, and that would be somewhat amusing for a short period of time.
What I will say, DDHQ has the same percentage in and the same amount of votes, but they do not have Guest up. They have Cassidy up 48-46.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they have the same amount of votes, roughly. Wait, no, they don't. I'm sorry, never mind.
No, they're about 2,500 votes behind.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Yes, I think I have something. I have a message for Kraz when he gets back on. It's very, very important, delivered to me from a very important source.
We do have. I want to say
yeah.
we are just to keep it a little bit on topic here. We are officially 2 minutes off from polls closing in California.
Yep.
Finally, good Lord, it's 11 o'clock Eastern time, but we are 2 hours off from polls closing in about a minute off from polls closing in California. And I do have an update for us in the Montana's first congressional district. Obviously, this is one of the new House seats created there. We have this rated as safe R because it's about a Trump +9 seat in Montana.
Hold on,
we
guys.
expect Republicans to win that. It's a primary right now between Ryan Zinke and former state senator Al Olszewski. Zinke is currently only up by about 2.5 points right now, 42 to 39.5 right now, which is a total of about 400 votes. DDH who's estimating about 20% of the vote in right now in that race. Zinke up 42 to 39.5 right now, and Olszewski in that race. So again, potentially another race that may have ended up being closer than maybe we previously had expected right now in that regard, between Zinke and Olszewski in that race. So something to pay attention to as we have officially now hit 11 o'clock Eastern time. That means polls have closed in tonight's key state of California. So Kraz, I know you're excited.
Yeah.
What don't?
I just wanted to say, it looks like the big drop in Rankin, it's being reported from what I can see that was an error, that the vote total was put into, that the entire vote total was just put into guests margin. So guests margin got basically doubled.
No, what happened was they got nervous when they saw me call out the fraud. Okay, they saw me and they knew they had to quickly retract it. They're not fooling anyone.
Somebody asked, who do we think will win, Bass or Caruso? I'd put the ever so slight bet on Bass.
I'm just going to point out that if Democrats lose the Los Angeles mayoral election, like that might be like a truly one of the lowest points of this primary season for the party, because we're talking
Caruso
about Los
is
Angeles.
Technically a Democrat.
Okay,
he's a Democrat the same way.
He's a dino.
Michael Bloomberg was a Republican.
Exactly. Yeah, okay.
I'm not arguing that.
Like, you're not fooling anyone, Caruso. But no, again, since Joe cut me off here, I've been ordered to tell Kraz, and granted, I'm specifically also ordering him as editor-in-chief to stay on, but he's been told by a very reliable source that you must work on your clerkship. So, sure to get on that. But no, I find California is going to be really interesting. Again, we're looking at those statewide races. You can kind of recap them real quick. Oops, did my microphone change? Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, your sound got a little messed up.
My computer likes to modify what microphone I'm using at points. Much better. No, it's everyone.
No, you sound better. You sound better.
You sound better now. You sound good.
Because my audio switched to my actual microphone now instead of to my AirPods. But no, like the California races, I mean, these are, again, there have been interesting statewide races in California pretty much every election for the last decade. 2010, obviously, you had the clown show of Republican candidates for governor and senator. You had Meg Whitman setting like a fourth of her personal fortune on fire to run against Jerry Brown. Carly Fiorina got within 10. 2014, you had like Ashley Swearingen ran a very competent campaign, got pretty close for that. 2010, actually, Kamala Harris almost lost as AG. And then in 2018, you almost had Steve Poizner win the treasurer campaign or insurance commissioner, because nobody cares about the insurance commissioner. And the Bay Area really, really likes Steve Poizner. As in, like, he was only losing those rates. I think he was only losing counties in that region. Like, he was getting over 40% of the vote there, right? He wasn't getting he was getting really, really good margins in the Bay Area for a candidate who's not a Democrat.
That's
but yeah. Where'd Kraz go? No.
Potentially some internet issues there, folks. We apologize.
You told him to go work on his clerkship.
There he is. Okay,
no, I ordered him. There we go.
Yeah, okay.
You're back.
Sorry.
Yay.
My audio cut out. I had to leave. I was not leaving to work on my clerkship applications.
Good to know.
But no, what I was saying is like I don't know if you heard what I was saying about these statewide candidates, but like Poizner in particular ran really, really well in the Bay Area. In fact, even until recently, like there was a state assembly member in a Clinton plus 20 district in the Bay Area, Catherine Baker.
Yeah, she kept winning somehow. But yeah, Poizner did really, really well in the Bay Area. I actually think, interestingly, not common for an independent or Republican, what doomed Poizner was that he just didn't do well enough in Southern California. Like he actually hit his benchmarks in the Bay Area and Northern California, and he's a big Silicon Valley guy, but he didn't hit his benchmarks in Southern California.
He hit more than his benchmark. I think the problem was that he was running against a Latino candidate, and it really did not work that well for him in Southern California, and like LA County in particular, he just did very poorly in.
Yeah, and so I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of these races, I actually think. I mean, I'm really interested in the Attorney General's race because Bonta is a standard Democrat, but he's emphasized some of his more progressive credentials. He doesn't call himself the top cop like many attorney generals. He calls himself, the people's lawyer or something like that. And, Anne Marie Schubert's an independent. She's in Sacramento County. She's the DA there. She got a lot of publicity for prosecuting mass shooters on who shot up a popular kind of bar nightlife street in Sacramento. So I think this is going to be a really interesting race. I don't think she's going to win, but I think she'll come maybe as close as Poizner, right? If she gets some traction.
Mm-hmm.
She got to make it to the primary first, though. There's been some efforts by Democrats to boot Republicans in this race.
And it's worth noting, that Sacramento County is the swing county in California elections. If you're winning, if you're a Republican or an independent, you want to win a statewide election, Sacramento County is a must-win county. In terms of, this is a county that Bush almost won in 2004. So it's a pretty good spot to run in if you're running as basically if you want to win, it's a good county you want to win. You can't afford to lose it, certainly.
Yeah, that's certainly always been the case with Sacramento. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. If you're state capital, of course.
Yeah.
I don't think we're getting any results from California yet. We will apparently get Boudin results around 11:45.
I don't know how accurate this is, but there was a report on Twitter that Orange County may be dropping relatively soon and relatively early tonight.
Right. So Orange County will give us, what's that going to give us? That's going to give us the Michelle Steele seat, right? That'll give us some.
Young Kim as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the primary with Greg Raths, who's run a very bizarre campaign that included talking to a panel of I believe it was like an Islamic panel about how bad the Zionists are, which is a really interesting direction to take in a Republican primary, going full Ilhan Omar in a Republican primary. And then on the other hand, on his website, he's portraying himself as like a really conservative, except in Israel, apparently. So whatever. He obviously that seat, Republicans would be much more likely to lose that seat if Greg Raths is the nominee instead of Young Kim.
Yes, badly.
And there has been some private worry from Republicans about the seat as well.
We have a couple questions in the comments we can get to, which is, how will things go in David Valadeo's district? I have no idea. It got bluer in redistricting. He's a very strong candidate, though, but his opponent's much stronger than previous years. So we'll see. That district is also funky in terms of turnout in primaries. So if there's one district you maybe shouldn't read too much into, it's probably this one. Then
I'm pretty sure Valadao won the 2018 primary vote when he lost.
Yeah, and then he lost it. Yeah, that was the upset because he won the primary by like 20 points and then lost in the general by 2. Then Aaron Hutton asks, do y'all think Schubert will advance today in California? I think so. I mean, there's been a large effort to get Republicans to vote for her. She is an ex-Republican who was elected as a Republican in Sacramento County, and she switched her registration basically to be able to actually win statewide. However, Democrats and Rob Bonta specifically have run ads boosting the other Republicans. I heard an ad on the radio when I was back home that was like, it was 2 people talking at their kitchen counter, and it was them going, "Oh, I hear Eric Early. He's this perennial candidate. He's a Republican in the race. I hear Eric Early is a true Trump conservative." And they do all this stuff. They talk about how conservative he is, and then at the end it goes, "Paid for by Rob Bonta for Attorney General." It's pretty transparent. So I don't think that'll work, but I think she advances. And is she the favorite in November? No, no, not. We're going to be the favorite in California. I mean, even when Poizner ran a really strong race, I think he was a toss up at best. I mean, I think Schubert has a chance, but I think Bonta is going to run hard on, protecting abortion access, suing other states. I don't know. I honestly just think it's a really tough hill to climb for a non-Democrat in California.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a state that Democrats consistently win by 30 points in presidential years.
Yeah, if they're losing the attorney general race, they've got bigger problems.
I mean, to be fair, Kamala Harris almost lost the attorney general race in 2010. People forget this. She almost lost the attorney general race in 2010.
Don't worry, I've never forgotten.
That'd be a very... Don't tell the K-Hive that, certainly.
I mean, if you're talking to the K-Hive, you've made a mistake.
Yes. You don't poke the K-Hive or approach it or interact with it in any way whatsoever.
The K-Hive pokes you.
The K-Hive will poke you, apparently. That's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, again, California is larger than a ton of countries and also has a worse election administration than a lot of third world countries. So we may be waiting a while for these election results. Okay. I don't think that's an unfair hit. I think that's pretty reasonable.
I mean, Alaska exists.
But that's understandable because they have to go with a bunch of areas over plains because you literally can't drive to most parts of Alaska. California, there's no excuse. They have roads.
Ooh, we have initial results from Orange County, ladies and gentlemen. In the 40th district, which is Young Kim's district, we have Asif Mahmood. He ran in the insurance commissioner race in 2018 as a Democrat. He's a Democrat in this race, the only Democrat running. He comes in the initial batch with about 48% of the vote. Young Kim comes in second with 32%, and Greg Rass comes in third with 20% of the vote. Interesting result. Looks like Kim is safe from the wrath of wraths.
Is that all Orange County?
What? So no. So this is going to be.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna. Yeah. So wait till 4th of July for the next batch. But I think. I think this.
Oof. Oh, this is bad for Schubert.
Oh, what's the first batch?
57 Bonta, 20 for Hochman, 15 for Early, 6 for Schubert.
Ooh, that is a rough. That's a rough batch. If that's correct, that's really tough.
Yeah, that's rough.
But so I think this batch, that's 62,000 votes in the primary. If I want to look back at the 2018 primary, the average the average district in Orange County had about, let me get up the numbers here. So if we look at
I also want to add in while Kraz is adding in right now, Michelle Steele is also facing a primary challenger from her right. That's failed. Jay Chen is at 45.5% right now. And Michelle Steele's at 44.3% right now.
So it looks like what happened here. So in 2018 in Young Kim's district, the 39th, which is not quite the same as this district, but demographically kind of similar, there were 141,000 primary votes. And we assume turnout's going to be up a little bit this time. And so if you assume turnout's going to be up, I think this is probably about 1/3 of the vote. I think this is about 60,000 votes. I think it's about 1/3. And also I will note the typical breakdown of later breaking ballots being more Republican. That is not necessarily true in California because the late ballots are not just election day votes. California has a very small election day contingent. The late ballots are often people who turn in their ballots late and procrastinate, aka young people and lots of Democrats. So it does not hold that it's necessarily true that these will break one way or the other. So you kind of just have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's a lot of incentives California has to vote and a lot of ways that you can get votes out, like ballot harvesting, that a lot of other states don't have, that really impact this entire process. You can't apply the same standards that apply to other states to a mail-in vote state or a state like California.
So I know we're not talking about it right now, but Mississippi third. Decision Desk has a higher vote count for Mike Cassidy than the New York Times, but they still don't have that Rankin County drop, which really makes me think that drop is an error, even though New York Times nor the AP have retracted it yet.
That would sound reasonable.
We'll certainly see. We will certainly see.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go shortly. Unfortunately, even though the fun has just begun, it seems like it's only going to last for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have to wait a month. Kraz, you're muted.
I'm here. I want to point out that, oh my God, Anne Marie Schubert is getting, listen to this. She's coming in third in Placer County, which, if you don't know what Placer County is, it's literally the giant suburban county next to Sacramento County. So, she might come in second, and she's toast. I mean, these numbers are accurate. She's totally toast. Which is kind of a shame for Republicans, because Bonta's only getting 55% in these first batches, which is actually not that good for a Democrat, and they're about to blow it and nominate. Hochman's not a nobody. He's an ex-U.S. attorney, I think, but he has not.
He's a Republican.
Yeah, he's a Republican. So yeah. I'll be like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really need to say anything more than he's a Republican.
That is the state of California politics as it exists right now.
Though I do think it's fair to say that Young Kim's margin will go down. The early vote seems to favor Democrats, I would imagine. So I imagine the more Trumpy Greg Raff's voters, depending on what Greg Raff's they see, will probably
honestly, I'm not sure it's Trumpy necessarily as it is that Young Kim doesn't represent in Congress the district she's running in. She does not represent a large chunk of the new district she's running in. A lot of this district is what Greg Raff's was running for against Katie Porter when he got within 7 points of unseating her in 2020. So I think it's more so that voters are more familiar in this part of Greg Raff's than it is about an attraction to someone who is,
Greg Raff's was the guy who got 7 points within 7 points of Katie Porter.
Yeah, I believe it. I think it was the Katie.
Yeah, that was him.
Yep.
I just want to give them an update here for some of you guys here. Looking at the times here, we're kind of going back and forth between the Times and DDHQ here with California, just because of just the amount of results that are coming in California. But we do have some of the congressional district results in here on the Times for some of these interesting races. The third district, it's a new district that's opened up here. A close race is only about a Trump plus 3 seat, but it's a race that we expect Republicans to do relatively well in, at least for 2022. Kevin Kiley was the favorite candidate there, with about some of the first results dropping in, about 14% reported, according to the Times, in this district, mainly from Placer County, which I believe is the largest county in the district by far. Kiley, it is Kermit Jones, the Democrat, who holds 42.2% of the vote there right now, while Kevin Kiley is at 35% in second place. Scott Jones, who was the next closest Republican, he's at 16% only right now, so he's about 19 points behind Kiley in some of these first results here in the third district. Certainly something to pay attention to. And then the 13th district, this is one we have rated as leans Democrat right now, Adam Gray at 40%. And then John Turkey is the Republican in at 26%.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the California map? I want to talk about how bad this California congressional map is. I think Kraz actually agrees with me on this. This map is not good.
It's really bad.
It's not good. It's really bad in the Central Valley in particular. Like the third district that we're talking about here, it makes no sense. It basically goes in the part that makes sense is it takes in a lot of the areas of the ski country. The problem is it cuts out a big chunk of Republican areas around ski country and just takes in Sacramento suburbs. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all, the district. The worst is the Central Valley. The 20th district is just an abomination.
Hold on. I'm sorry. David Valdado not doing well in his primary.
Ooh.
Sitting at 25%. Next challenger, Chris Matthews, 16%. Adam Madrios, 18%.
That is from Kings County.
from Kings
I
County.
think there's some. I think the New York Times just has some iffy results. Like I severely doubt that in the controller race, Lanhee Chen is at 40% of the vote. I really doubt that.
No, I buy that. Yeah, no, I buy that.
You buy that?
I buy that. Yeah, I buy that too.
He
She's the only one.
was endorsed by the LA
Oh,
Times.
he's the only Republican. Yeah, that makes sense. He's the only Republican in the race. That makes sense. Okay.
The one I wonder, they don't have it up on their main one, but I was going to go look to see other races.
Sorry to interrupt you guys, though.
You're fine.
The other one was the treasurer race, but it doesn't look like they're going to have results for that one. And then let's see what's going on in Padilla's race.
Padilla will advance according to Politico. I don't think anybody's surprised.
Only 49.7% though, and there's really no other Democrats. So
yeah, I'm trying to find the actual full Senate results because it's not really showing them on.
Oh, I forgot that California has both a special election and the regular election.
For some reason, Dan. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for some reason, Dan, the Republican Muser is doing 7% better in one of them in the special election than in the regular election. So, whoopee.
Okay, guys, I think I'm going to head off for the night. This was fun. Have a good one. Later, y'all.
Have a good one, buddy.
Yep. Oh, here we go. Here we got some results showing up for on decision desk. Although I'm questioning the. Good God, some of these districts are awful. What is that 19th district? I forgot how bad the 19th and 18th districts are. Jesus Christ, these are terrible. They look awful. McClintock ahead in the 5th district. That's not a surprise. McCarthy at 58%. In the 20th, that's no surprise. Darrell Issa well ahead. Mike Levin at 56% in the 49th. I don't think that's a huge... Yeah, I'm just kind of looking through some of these results here. I don't think anything's too surprising here. I would be interested in the 1st. The 1st is one of those districts that you could potentially see 2 Republicans in, just because it's so strongly Republican. But I need to actually see how Democrats voted here. But I'm just looking at these races. Nothing really too exciting so far. Let's pull up the 20th district. That's the McCarthy seat. McCarthy at 58%. Marissa Wood, 23. That sounds about right. Let's open up 48th district. That's another probably Democrat and Republican. Yep, Stephen Houlihan at 32%. Sorry, there's not a whole lot of these in right now.
Yeah, I will say that Republicans are putting up a fairly strong showing in the controller race. I think this will probably get more Republican as it goes on. I think probably the late breaking ballots will be a little bit more favorable for Republicans. But they're actually putting up a pretty good fight. I mean, Chen's getting 65% in Glenn County, which would be roughly, if I have my 2020 numbers right, they would be, here we go. That would be better than Trump in 2020. And because this is a jungle primary, you would naturally assume that some of the Democrats would filter up to him. So, it's not like he's doing terribly.
For
him.
Isn't that where Jerry Brown lives now, Glenn County?
I don't know. Jerry Brown's a weird dude. So, maybe. But he's getting, because this is probably, this race is probably Republicans' best chance to flip a statewide office in California. If you look at Sacramento, for example, he's doing worse than Trump. So I don't know. We'll see, but fairly strong performance so far.
Mm-hmm. The problem with even, with his campaign is that you're running as a Republican in California. That's a pretty tough sell for a lot of Democratic voters in California, surprisingly.
Yeah,
even with his open primary system.
He's lined up some decent endorsements, so I wouldn't write him off totally. But yeah, it's always a tough lift, right? That's a tough hill to climb in a state that Biden won by 29%.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Marie Schubert is not even winning Sacramento County. She is losing Sacramento
Oof.
County by 30% to Rob Bonta. So
Oh dear.
F's in the
We gonna
chat.
play
for
taps?
a chance at flipping that.
No taps for that.
Yeah, so that is
Dang, that's rough.
ooh, that is tough.
I mean, that's the problem with this is that Republican voters want to vote for Republicans. Democratic voters want to vote for Democrats. It's a pretty tough challenge to get people to vote for an independent candidate, even if it's in their best interest as a party to pick a side or to the strategic independent idea, right? That you're giving up your party's position.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I am waiting to see whether or not Marin will be more Democratic than San Francisco in any of these races. That is a little trivia tidbit I've been waiting to see for a while because it was close in 2020, but didn't quite hit. And if you know anything about those counties, it would be hilarious if Marin was more Democratic than San Francisco in any of these races. So let's see. Not too many results rolling in. Any notable things from you guys right now?
Not
Not that I can
particularly,
think of.
quite honestly.
I'm still waiting for results from the Boudin recall. It sounds about 11:45 Eastern time they'll come in. So, and it looks like Brian Dahl is the strongest Republican in that gubernatorial race. The sacrificial lamb candidate.
Hooray!
He's a real politician. You know, he's state senate, but
Oh, it's better than no one.
Yep.
Let's see.
What I'll say to
Apparently,
that.
New York Times has fixed Mississippi third mistake. It seems like.
Yes, it did. The results now basically match DDHQs.
Yeah, Padilla putting in a somewhat weak performance, I think, actually. Like, he's running behind a lot of other Democrats. I'm kind of curious about why that is.
Does he not have a lot of name ID?
I mean, it's weird. He does, right? He's a sitting senator. I think he's just kind of he's a very, very genetic Democrat, right? He super generic, not a ton that's super notable about him. So I tend to think that he'll be weaker than most, but fundamentally, obviously, he's still going to win.
I mean, it will be interesting to see an actual Republican on the ballot in a California Senate race for the first time since 2010. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see at least.
And it looks like which district of California 13, by the way? I need to be reminded sometimes for some of these new districts.
CA 13. Is that the Gray district or?
Yeah, Adam Gray versus John Duarte.
But which actual seat is that?
It's Central California.
Yeah, Central Valley.
Oh, interesting. Is that the old Costa district, right? It was the old 16.
No, this is the old McNary district / Harder district. This is where Josh Harder was.
Oh, no. Harder is now in 9.
Yeah, Harder's in 9 now, but this is the one he was originally.
This is a more democratic version of that old seat.
Okay. This is kind of spiritually the old 16 because it's got the Western Fresno County part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is kind of spiritually, the old 16. So, okay, that's interesting. Who are these people? Who is Adam Gray? And who is Duarte?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we're running
Yeah, you compare it to the fact that California has 52 seats. Sometimes you just kind of wait for the nominees and then we learn about them then. So,
yeah, I guess it's a lot to keep track of. Let's see. Okay, no results reporting from San Francisco yet. I know that's a race we've all got our eyes on. New York Times does have some Senate results from San Francisco, but I'm not. Or no, they don't. I thought they did for a minute, but they don't. So yeah, that's what we all have our eyes on. Looks like we're going to be kind of in a waiting game for bigger drops.
Yep.
Until they start.
As it usually is.
Yeah.
So it looks like Democrats are about at 54% right now in that District 13 primary.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Republicans are taking up the remaining. So that's not actually bad for Republicans right now. That's a Democratic-leaning seat still. It was drawn to favor Democrats more. The Central Valley was, I would call it an almost explicit racial gerrymander. It basically, you packed all the white voters into one seat, and then they just kind of spread the Hispanic voters out. Nominally to maximize Democrat or Hispanic strength. In reality, it gives a lot of Democratic districts in the Central Valley that might have otherwise been a little bit more competitive, in particular the 13th. But, that additional seat, the 22nd, which is just stretching from, I really hate the 22nd. It just kind of stretches into part of Bakersfield. Oh, there's two districts there. There's the 22nd district. Oh yeah, there's the special for the 22nd as well, I guess, tonight.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay, so you got that. Yeah, Rudy. Right now, Republicans in that 22nd though. Valdow's only at 25%, but Republicans are taking up 60% of the vote. There's 4 candidates. 3 of them are Republicans. They're collectively taking 60% of the vote. Rudy Salas is only at 40%. That's really bad, I would think.
I don't know what kind of grip Gavin Newsom has over California suburbanites. It's truly remarkable to me. He's putting up almost 60% of the vote in this primary, which is way better than any Democrat. He's putting up with 54% reporting, according to the New York Times. He's putting up 55% in San Diego County, which, if I have my numbers right, would be almost as much as Biden got in 2020. So I don't know what kind of grip this guy has.
He's at 54 in River. He's at 54 in Orange, 54 in Riverside. Nothing from San Bernardino yet.
Yeah, it's truly, which is strange because, I think he was thought of as being unlikable for a long time, but I guess not. I guess the conventional wisdom is wrong. He's crushing it.
For comparison, he's only at 49% in Fresno, which makes a lot more sense because Fresno hasn't voted Democratic in a gubernatorial race since, I believe, the 50s or 40s. Mm-hmm. It's been it's been consistently Republican in gubernatorial races. Whereas Riverside, I think these counties almost voted for. They were relatively close for Trump, at least. Riverside, at least. It's been a traditionally pretty decent county for Republicans. Yeah, the Attorney General is interesting. You've got those Republicans are only combining for 32% of the vote, and then Schubert's getting another 8%. Bont is only at 57%. That's not terrible. Secretary of State's a blowout. It's 61%. So Secretary of State's Shirley Weber is actually doing better than Newsom. And then you have Lan He-Chen, who is the only Republican running, and he's at 36% right now, with the field of Democrats getting the remaining portion of the vote, as well as a Green Party candidate.
Lanny Chen, I wonder where he's going to actually settle. I wonder I think he's probably, I don't know who he's going to face. Malia Cohen strong. Glazer, don't underestimate Glazer. He's at 11%, and he's the LA County controller. And none of LA County is in. So don't underestimate his shot as results begin to roll in. Anything? Okay.
But you were mentioning earlier about keeping an eye on Marin County versus San Francisco. For comparison here, Marin County voted for Ronald Reagan in 1980. It gave him 45% of the vote. He actually got 49% in 84, and even Bush Senior got 49%. Even HW, he got 25%. Republicans are now down to 16% in Marin County. San Francisco obviously is not good territory for Republicans, to put it lightly, but Marin County is just getting even worse.
I will want to bring attention to one result, which is California's 41st district. Ken Calvert, the incumbent Republican, is only getting 39.6%. That his Democratic challenger is getting 39.2%, and Republicans are getting way outvoted in this district so far, which is surprising because it's a narrowly Trump-won suburban district.
It's a strange seat. It doesn't make a lot of sense as a practical district.
Very, very strange. Rollins is a strong candidate, so I mean, this is a surprising result. We'll see if it holds. But if it does, we have a surprisingly competitive district in the fall. Who knows? That's an interesting.
Yeah. This is honestly one of the districts that irritated me the most. They drew it because there's no justification for how they drew it other than to benefit Democrats. They drew in like these really, really liberal, like Coachella areas, and with like the reddest parts of Riverside County, or not the reddest parts, but it makes very little sense as a district. I don't think there's really anything in common between those two areas. Coachella would have made a lot more sense in either the old district, the old Raul Ruiz district, which is just all of eastern Riverside County, or the current one, which is just drawing in from Riverside County to these upper areas, and then for some reason part of San Bernardino. I don't know. It's just a strange district. I really don't like it.
Fair.
Really want to see some results from the 27th, though. That Christy Smith is back. She's for a third time.
Hey, third time.
You know what they say?
Third time.
You know what they say? Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me once. Fool me twice. Can't be fooled again. Apparently, the Democratic Party can be fooled again in the 27th district. This is the third time.
What about Quay Cordy? Is there any chance the Democrats nominate Quay Cordy instead? I know. I think Democrats are hoping that because the district got 2 percentage points bluer, Christy Smith will win. And oh boy, do I have bad news for them about the environment in 2022 versus 2020.
But it's 2 points bluer. The seat is 2 points bluer.
I think at some point, it sounds mean. I think at some point, she eventually has to win, right? Like if she keeps running in like 12th district, like eventually she's got to stumble into a win, right? Like eventually Garcia's going to say something stupid, right? Like, so if I'm her, I mean, just pay myself a salary from the campaign account and just keep going. I mean,
Not like she can run for assembly again. I mean, she could, but like, why would you?
I think the funniest part about
I think that would be almost worse.
No, the funniest part about the whole saga too is that she left to run for Congress, totally failed, flamed out, and meanwhile Republicans flipped her state assembly seat, actually locking Democrats out of the general election in that seat in 2020. So actually Republicans got 2 seats from Christy Smith. She lost the Democratic Party 2 seats in California. Quite an impressive.
And then she lost in 2020 again in a district Biden won by 10 points?
Yes, 10 points. She was one of the 3 Democrats in California to lose seats that Biden won by double digits. So real impressive state party over there.
I will say in the first district, it doesn't look like it's going to be an R versus R race. Max Steiner's at 26%. The next closest Republicans at 5%. So we'll get a fairly generic LaMalfa underperformance, probably. Not by much. Just inexplicably runs a few points behind the Republican every time.
Every time.
Not good.
We got something from the 23rd district. That's the San Bernardino vote sync. That can't be accurate, I don't think. Yeah, that's got to be wherever it's coming from. They have they have the Republican Jay Obernolte at 45% and 2 Democrats at 55%. I somehow doubt that.
It's a very small percentage of the drop, Eric. It's very small percentage.
Yeah, it's very small. That's what I'm saying here. But it is good to see at least something out of San Bernardino. Here we go. New York Times has some results in from the 27th district. Christy Smith, 44%. Mike Garcia, 39%.
Ooh, she's done it.
Quay Cordy at 7%.
Third time the charm. Yeah, third time's the charm. I mean, look, she's, obviously, wow. No, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it'll probably get worse for Democrats as it goes on. But
we've got in the 45th district, you got which is the Michelle Steele seat, Jay Chen 46%, Michelle Steele 44%, and another Republican, Long Pham, at 10%.
These results
so
are really
Republicans
these results are super heavily Democratic. Like if you're looking at, I mean, I'm not, I don't really want to predict the way they're going to shift, but they almost have to shift Republican, because if you look at the 27th, if you add up the Democrats, they're getting like 58% of the vote right now versus 42 for Republicans. And I just don't know how to emphasize that. I do not believe that in a Biden plus 12 district in this national environment, Democrats are going to win this overall vote, 58 to 42. That feels somewhat unrealistic. We also have mayoral results from LA, from the city of LA. Rick Caruso, the ex-Republican leading establishment Democrat, and Congresswoman Karen Bass, 40.7 to 38.2. So a 2.5 point lead for Caruso in early results.
Where are you seeing this from?
The LA County elections website.
Oh, gotcha.
So it looks like that is not an encouraging result for Democrats. They lose the LA County mayoral race. That would be somewhat disconcerting. So that is interesting result. And we're about to get Boudin results probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Nice.
We're getting there. Look at us. We're slowly climbing the mountain.
Yeah, so these results are going to get more Republican. I can almost assure of that. If you look at the controller race, for example, Lanny Chen has 33% of the vote. I do not believe the Democrats are going to win the overall vote, 67 to 33. Some more Republican counties might be out, but still, I just think that if you look at this logically, these are going to get a lot more Republican. So don't draw too many conclusions from these at this time.
I also want to say, just as an output here, I do want to announce right now, DDHQ in the 47th district. This is the Katie Porter district. We have currently rated as leans Democratic. DDHQ is projecting that Katie Porter, of course, and will be Scott Ball will be the Republican running against Porter in that race. That's what DDHQ is currently projecting between those two candidates. It will be Porter versus Ball in the 47th district.
Ball is an interesting guy. He ran in the 48th in 2018 as an alternative to Dana Rohrabacher, back when everyone thought Rohrabacher was too close to Russia, and Russia was the most important political issue ever.
And he almost locked Democrats out.
And there was a big fear he was going to, because he was the head of the Orange County GOP, and he actually had a very poor performance and then did nothing. So.
I know there was a concerted effort. There was this thought process that Rohrabacher was going to get the nomination, so Republicans should vote for Scott Baugh to lock Democrats out of the race. As usual, messing with the race doesn't usually work too well. Right. I think Baugh ended up getting 16% of the vote. Harley Ruda got 17.23, and Hans Kirstein got about 16%.
Yeah.
Or 17.2. So he was close. I mean, that's not a bad effort. But I know there were several Democrats were anal that they were going to get screwed out of it because the Republicans take the top two in Orange County districts.
There were a bunch of seats like that. The Democrats were terrified they were going to get locked out of. None of them, they didn't get locked out of any of them. Actually, they were kind of lucky in that way. So,
well, I'll go you a better. I remember when Democrats were scared that Republicans could lock them out of the 2016 Senate election in California. There was a legitimate fear for a time that Democrats could be locked out of that because they had no names and Republicans only had a couple of candidates.
That would have been very funny, but that did not happen.
It turned out Republicans got locked out.
Yeah, and then in the treasurer race, New York Times has Fiona Ma with her numerous ethical problems at 58%, so doing quite well. And incumbent insurance commissioner Ricardo Lara at 38%. Unclear if Republicans will get locked out there. So some interesting results. California, always very exciting, obviously.
Well, we always love California. God bless the hippie state.
Yeah,
God bless the hippie state of California. We all know we love you. I hope you know that, Kraz. I hope you do.
Okay. And I do think, I think that looking at, I do think I'd be kind of bullish on the controller race right now for Republicans. They're just looking at where Lonnie Chen is doing well, even though these votes are probably going to get more Republican. For example, in Marin, he's basically exceeding Trump's percentage right now in Marin, despite the fact that these votes are going to get more Republican. And, and again, like these are some very Democratic counties. So I would be fairly happy with these early results in the controller race, at least, if I'm Republicans.
And so what exactly for people who are not in the know, what does the controller of California do? What is the significance of this office?
I have no idea. They like the main thing they do. In general terms, it's confusing. We have a controller who basically oversees the money, right? Make sure it's being spent effectively and efficiently, et cetera. And then we also have a treasurer. How those two offices differ, I could not tell you with a gun to my head. And then California also has something called the Board of Equalization, a one-of-its-kind board that oversees the taxation of California. So it's a whole mess. I mean, the controller race, it does have some fiscal responsibilities. Chen has run on a platform basically of cleaning up waste in the office. His platform is that the state spends a lot of money on social programs that don't go anywhere, particularly on homelessness. And his main platform has been cleaning that up and running a tighter fiscal ship. So it does have some power, but the California government's a complete mess. So
that sounds like California too.
Yeah, I mean, this would more be to get Chen into a statewide office to potentially run for governor if there's a second Biden midterm and Newsom is termed out, something like that, right? That's really what this is about, right? As a stepping stone.
Well, that's what it typically is with statewide offices, right?
And also,
you want to
rebuild the bench.
I mean, if you have a Republican not only on the ballot, but you have a Republican statewide, that's a pretty good talking point for the party, right? Oh, we actually got someone elected.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty sad, but like that's the state of things, really.
Yeah, we're getting more and more results coming in.
Yeah. I mean, Lanny Chen's not. I mean, he's getting pretty deep. Like in Miranda County, he's at 17% of the vote in Miranda County. That's not bad at all.
I said that exceeds what Trump got in Marin already.
Yeah. He's at 21 in San Mateo.
Yeah, so
he's actually almost leading in Santa Clara. He's almost leading in Santa Clara County. He's at 24% there. The top Dem only has 25.
Yeah, so I would be. I mean, I think that Chen's putting up pretty good numbers. I think Republicans have to be disappointed in how Doe's doing against Ma, especially given her ethical lapses. And of course, I mean, the rest of the races, they're just getting completely worked over, especially the attorney general race is a total catastrophe for them. So yeah, I mean, bravo on to
Secretary of State. I mean, is Shirley Weber extremely popular or something? Because she's 63% of the vote, which is really impressive.
I don't think it's that personally. I think what's going on is that was the race more than any other race where her opponents are just total no names. Perennial candidates, like it's just a joke. So yeah.
So Kraz, I know you mentioned earlier in the night about how Mike Franken seemed to have not bought in any part of the county, any TV areas that were technically outside of Iowa.
Yep.
Just based on the counties he's won.
Yep.
And I'll send you this tweet from a guy named Mac Lynn where that basically matches up perfectly with the county.
Called it. Yeah, media markets,
especially literally in about 6 of these 7 northern counties across the border with Minnesota. That's Rochester, Minnesota. Finkenauer is winning 6 of those 7 counties. In a lot of these border counties down in the eastern edge, not only Jackson, Clinton, Scott, Muscatine, Louisa, Des Moines, and Lee counties. Those are all part of technically more part of the Illinois media market. We have Finkenauer winning all those, and then a bunch of counties in the Omaha, Nebraska media market, as well as
these might have been closer to her. Yeah,
and she is winning all those. So
yeah, so
your analysis tracked pretty well there.
The way that primary results always seem to overlap with media markets convinces me more than anything that ads are in fact very effective still in political.
Yes.
But no, what I've heard, organizers have told me the most important thing is organizing.
Well, that's especially funny in some of these bigger states. Like, you can convince me that you can knock a ton of doors in like a district or maybe like in a smaller state, but like in California, I mean, these people run and like you just see nothing about them. They're just out there, like they're just running, and it's just like you just hope they just hope that you see their ads or something. Like, it's like in some of these bigger states, I mean, you would have to be insane to not run a large media campaign.
I'm going to check Decision Desk Twitter, make sure there's not been any additional calls here.
We have results from San Francisco, Kraz.
Oh, we do? Where?
On the Times.
Okay.
45% in. Yes is winning 61-39 to recall Chesa Boudin as the district attorney. 45% in right now.
I'm seeing it now. Yep. Preliminary report. Let's go H.
And we're not going to be doing taps for Chesa Boudin because out of respect for his parents who dislike the military and cops.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Apparently 26 voters have somehow overvoted in the recall measure, which I'm not even sure how you do that. Which means they voted for both.
Hooray! Oh, wait, that's one. Where's the flag? That's one for the flag. That's one for the flag. Ooh, yay! Hooray! Hooray for the American voter. Amen.
So this is, San Francisco Chronicle has the same results. He's down by 22.5 points with 100,000 votes in. Hard to see how he comes back from that one.
You know where in the city these votes are coming? You probably can't look at the precinct, but where do you think these early results are from?
They're going to be, these are going to be all over because they just dump everything at once. That being said, I'm trying to find it on the. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. So this is going to be from all over the place. I can look at a more detailed statement of the vote, but if he's losing 61, he's probably getting crushed like everywhere. Here are some other results from San Francisco, though. We have, let's see,
is Nancy Pelosi losing her primary?
No, she is not.
I didn't think so.
She is not losing the primary.
How much fun would have that been, though?
It's funny because, like, I said this, and it's like, there are so many ambitious Democrats in the city, and like no one challenges her. So that's always funny to me.
Well, you don't want to challenge the boss, otherwise you're going to get shivved.
I guess, but she's so old at this point. It looks like Chesa Boudin is going to go down by a very, very wide margin. It will not be close. So now San Francisco Chronicle has precinct results up. So here are some interesting numbers. So in some of the
you have the screen share or
here I can screen share. I think if
that way we can get an idea. So I'm not as familiar with the geography, despite having watched Monk for 10 years. I'm not exactly familiar with the geography of San Francisco as much as I should be.
All right, so can you guys see this?
Yep. Here we go. Let's pull this up.
You see it? Yeah.
There we go.
Right. So
that lines up.
Yeah. So green is yes. This is a pretty typical coalition. Couple notable things. First, so this L here, this is the like kind of progressive L in the city that forms the Haight-Ashbury and the Mission District. The turnout in a lot of these precincts was pretty bad. And, the turnout out here in the Sunset was better. This is some of the more upper middle class Asian voters. The Marina and Pacific Heights just really, oh wow, they really hate Boudin. 87, this is the wealthier white areas of the city. Interestingly, he is also getting crushed almost universally, or not totally universally, but he's doing pretty bad in Bayview Hunters Point, which is the historically and still is the heavily African American part of the city. So that's actually interesting. He's getting completely destroyed. Here, if I can scroll up to Chinatown. Yeah, this is not close. He's losing, 70-30 in Chinatown. In the Tenderloin, which is interesting historically. This neighborhood, Tenderloin, is probably only like 12% white. Likely, I think the poorest neighborhood in the city. He's getting crushed there, and he's getting crushed in the more kind of middle class residential areas, heavily Hispanic and Asian, down in the Excelsior, Ocean View, Crocker, Amazon, and Visitation Valley. So, this is he's basically losing everyone except for the very progressive whites in the Haight-Ashbury and the Castro and Noe Valley. Those are the most progressive white areas of the city.
Wait, you're telling me that one of the most progressive white areas is a place called the Castro Valley? Please.
No. So what's interesting about this, though, is that typically actually the Castro is not one of the most progressive neighborhoods, but it's interesting that this has a significant racial element to it. So, neighborhoods that are more amenable to progressives, usually like the Tenderloin, but are heavily non-white, are voting to recall him, and areas that are typically more moderate, like Noe Valley and the Castro, but are heavily white, are voting to keep him. So that is an interesting trend.
Hooray for that, I guess.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Looks like he is toast.
Nah. So nah. Goodbye.
Look, I
don't even have a horse in this race. I could give two craps about San Francisco.
I have a horse. I think it's a very good thing if I think one of the most destructive things in modern American politics is this idea that parties can just put whoever they want on the ballot as long as they control regions, and there will be no consequences whatsoever for their decision. I think it's a very good thing if in cities like San Francisco you have people saying, no, we think that police officers should exist, and that maybe shoplifting and racially motivated hate crimes are not a good thing and should probably be punished by police officers to some extent. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing if you have that baseline coming back. These are big American cities. San Francisco is a great American city. It would be really, really bad if you have stuff going on like this. You had Seattle, almost elected police abolitionist, a city attorney. I don't know how if you're a progressive prosecutor, you can look at stuff like this. You can look at the backlash in LA with Caruso having a pretty decent mark there in a city that should not be remotely competitive. You look at Seattle, you look at these places rejecting the most radical progressive candidates, say maybe we messaged incorrectly. Maybe at minimum, maybe we messaged incorrectly. At most, maybe we should reconsider not prosecuting gun crimes. I think those would be good things to look at, because I don't think the idea that we're going to be more careful until we prosecute, we're not going to be overly burdensome, I don't think that's something voters in Democratic areas are going to be looking at me like, oh no, that's a terrible idea. I think when people have a problem is when you have hate crimes going on in San Francisco and feeling like the city, the justice system is not going to find who did it and prosecute them. That's concerning. I would imagine that's very concerning for a lot of people there. Some of the cases are pretty terrible. I would think, that that's something people want to, something people want to deal with.
I do think that this is.
I think it's a good thing.
It's an interesting result too, because I think it's an interesting coalition he has right now, and this might change a little bit, but it's interesting that he's managed to actually convert some neighborhoods that are not typically the most progressive, but are heavily white and wealthier, the Castro and Noe Valley in particular. He's managed to actually win those places, and he's won the Southern Mission District, which is much wider, Bernal Heights, which is wider and very progressive. He's won that by a huge margin. I think it's interesting because he is basically losing every single neighborhood with lots of non-white voters. I think that probably goes against the narrative a little bit that opposition to progressive prosecutors is entirely from wealthy whites who are uncomfortable with criminal justice reform.
It's the exact opposite here.
Yeah.
So you have the wealthy whites that are wanting to recall him, but you also have people in the Mission District that are heavily white, like a lot of heavily white areas voting to keep him.
Right. And so I think there was, a lot of rhetoric coming from his campaign, especially that, this was all about Republicans and reactionaries. And apparently it turned out that working class non-white voters do not like him very much. And that is a big reason why he's going to lose this recall by a wide margin.
What you mean? You're telling me that the viral tweet about how San Francisco is still suffering from the consequences of decades of Republican control isn't entirely accurate?
Yeah, I don't think that's fully accurate. I think this is a very interesting result though, and will be instructive. So big backlash against progressives in San Francisco. First the school board, now Boudin. So fascinating.
So how do they regroup? What's the situation in the city council? Is it still controlled by moderates or is it a progressive majority?
It's a little bit unclear. I mean, I would say that if I had to do the rough math, it's probably a progressive majority. I think they're probably going to hold on to that just because those members haven't stirred up as much controversy as other progressives. But I mean, there's a pretty significant backlash right now. I think that one of Boudin's blind spots, I said this earlier, I think, is that I think he viewed himself as fundamentally anti-establishment and a disruptor and a reformer, when I think a lot of voters actually view him as really like kind of part of the establishment, because progressives have had such a run in San Francisco, winning so many races. So I think that there's a backlash now. And yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see where they go from here. Because I don't really know. I mean, they really thought they were going to win this one, right? A lot of progressives supported the school board recall. This one, everyone. I mean, they really thought from the start that they could win this one, and did not turn out that way.
Well, I think it's worth noting. I don't think Decision Desk is tracking this race. The San Francisco Chronicle has called the race yes for recall. Yeah. We're going to mention that call because I do not believe Decision Desk is reporting it, and at this point, it's very abundantly clear what the result is here. Pretty bad result for progressives. You mentioned there was a ballot initiative on making the recall process harder. Do you know how that is doing?
Yeah, that's losing 60-40. So
it's doing about the same. It's doing
about the same. It sounds like voters like recalling people. And then so some other initiatives which are kind of interesting. The initiative to establish an Office of Victim and Witness Rights. So a victims' rights initiative is winning by 23 points, about the exact same number that Boudin's being recalled by.
Wow.
And those initiatives are usually associated with more kind of conservative, tough on crime initiatives. And that one's winning by a very wide margin.
Yeah, I would imagine tough on crime by San Francisco standards is a little bit different than what it would mean in, Georgia. But
it is interesting, right? That, I think essentially there's something of a bigger backlash than I expected, maybe to some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen articles about this, and I do think looking at this sort of racialized voting pattern you don't usually see in these sort of democratic things. I mean, what you said seems to be pretty clear. That aside from like the wealthier white areas to the north, that are the most conservative on this sort of thing, it seems like it's pretty much tracking that the more diverse an area is, the worse Chesa Boudin is doing. I would think that's, if you're the Democratic Party, your base relies on, you are relying on pulling up Stalinistic margins among black voters. You're relying on pulling really good margins with Asian voters, really good margin with Hispanic voters. You should probably look at this and say, are we on the right track with our base here? What our base actually is, not what we think our base is. I mean, this doesn't matter too much in California. You put a Democrat on the ballot, they're going to win. But in those Orange County seats, that sort of stuff does matter, where there's a lot of Asian voters. Central Valley seats, that sort of stuff matters. Other seats across the country, the sort of stuff does matter long term. And with the Electoral College already in a precarious situation, I don't think they can afford to just be tossing states to the side like Nevada or Arizona or stuff long term, because they're looking at a base that's not really their base. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it seemed like there is a genuine split here between, and this is consistent with other races, between what white progressives want and what the rest of the party seems to want.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a particularly interesting result just because it's a coalition I haven't really seen in the city in another race. And so, I mean, I do think it adds some legitimacy to the idea that, it's not like this is just like, people are upset with Chesa. It's just wealthy white people. So that's
as if that's the controlling interest in San Francisco. That's the only.
Yeah. That's like a decisive voter block in San Francisco. And looking statewide, it looks like Republicans are not doing probably as well as they hoped. It looks like in the attorney general race, Hochman is going to advance, which I think Republicans were hoping to avoid. He might actually lose to Eric Early, who's a perennial candidate.
That's the one that they were that the Bonta campaign was promoting, right?
Yep, that's the one the Bonta campaign was pumping up, so to speak. Yeah, and then I'm trying to see if there are any other notable results from California.
Lan He-chen's getting 17% in San Francisco County.
Right, so again, that's already better than Donald Trump. I think these results become more.
You like this? In San Francisco, 17.2% for Lan He-chen. In Marin County, 17.1% for Lan He-chen.
There we go. We've hit it.
We've succeeded.
Just for the listeners that don't know, because I think like most people are probably wondering why I'm joking about this. So San Francisco County is like 30% white. It's a high income county because it's so expensive, but it's 30% white. It's historically progressive. It's got tons of different ethnic groups and neighborhoods. I mean, it's like a cultural and ethnic fabric. And then Marin is like 80% white. Its median income is like $300,000 a year. It's one of the places. It's one of the wealthiest counties in America. Like every single town is just like classics. Like the houses are massive. Like it's unbelievable. And so like the fact that it's more, that's just hilarious. Like I just can't how funny that is.
It's just nestled. It's nestled in the woods.
Hold up. Just to move away from California for a little bit. Montana's first. My fellow Polish name man, Al Olszewski. He is winning with 56% of the vote in. Al Olszewski is winning 40.5 to 40.2% over Ryan Zinke.
Is it going to be really close?
He is keeping it close.
According to the New York Times, it's actually
Polish man, go.
It's not entirely clear who has more votes out left. Like it's very even, which I think is funny. So like again, I think it would be very funny if Zinke went through all this to like.
Don't forget Zinke is endorsed by Trump, so technically this would be chalked up as another Trump.
this would be an objectively very funny result.
This would be objectively would be a funny result.
I think we should all be rooting for Big Al here.
Yeah. Big Al.
It's worth noting also, just to go back to Mississippi, Michael Guest has clawed it back and is now only down by about 0.7% to Michael Cassidy, about 300 votes. This is with 79% of the vote in.
Okay, but that's bad. Like Cassidy is like some dude they pulled off the populist 4chan page. Like, he had no hype whatsoever. He's a Republican running on universal maternal leave, and like he's getting. Are you kidding me?
God damn it!
I think it's
Michael,
funny.
Maybe Guest just like totally fell asleep at the wheel, and maybe now he'll be like awake at the wheel and realize, oh,
I want to be clear that if you took off the election fraud stuff from Cassidy's website, like I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference between his platform and Henry Cuellar's. Like what's funny about this is that if you took the election fraud stuff off, he could conceivably like a conservative Catholic Democrat. Like that's like his platform. Like so like, the fact that Guest is losing is just like very, very funny.
Yeah. I do want to mention, of course, the 22nd district special election, different than the primary. Connie Conway is up by 11% right now. This was expected. This is probably going to get worse for Democrats, I would assume, like we've been saying. The special election before the runoff was abysmal for Democrats, like just utterly trash, dumpster fire. result. This is, of course, the district that is formerly represented by what was the name of the milk guy?
The milk guy.
No, the cow guy. What was it? The
Oberweis? You talking about Jim Oberweis in Illinois?
No. The
Nunez.
Yeah, Nunez. Devin Nunez, who resigned to become the CEO of Truth Social, the breakout social media platform that is taking the world by storm. Right up there with
do we have a Truth Social account? I think we should. I think we have space for a Truth Social.
I don't think the overlords would like that, Kraz.
Yeah.
I don't think the overlords would as funny as that would be. I don't think the overlords would particularly enjoy that.
I mean, you never know.
I would say we should not risk it and risk upsetting the overlords. That's my opinion.
I mean, look, Kraz already put things on fire by posting that independent state legislature's article, which seemed to have confused some people into thinking that Kraz is some radical, the San Francisco, San Francisco law student.
One guy in the comments was like, I got a couple comments that were like, you must hate democracy, and then like other people were like, oh, like this is interesting. So like, yeah, like
Didn't one guy say that we that he was disappointed that we published such anti-democracy nonsense? That was funny.
Yeah, wait. So we have by the way,
noted radical conservative Kraz Greinetz.
Yes, radical conservative Kraz Greinetz.
To close the loop on some South Dakota results, the ballot measure that garnered some attention is going to go down to defeat 67.5 to 32.5. Dusty Johnson's winning 60-40. John Thune is going to win 73 to 20. It looks like, absolutely no drama there. No
it
drama.
Doesn't look like at least, yeah. It doesn't at least look like Yes is winning in Douglas County, South Dakota. It's got 52% of the vote. The problem is it's losing everywhere else. In South Dakota.
It has one county with like 1,000 votes. So it's a nice little consolation prize. But
I just want to give an update, folks. Hearing that it sounds like Clay Wagner, who came in third in the Mississippi 4th Congressional primary on the GOP side, will be endorsing Mike Ezell at his concession speech tonight.
Clay Wagner. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Palazzo, I mean, do you think he'll get a better rival? Do you think he'll get a better plea deal if he drops out?
But yeah, Wagner, who came in third, is preparing to endorse Ezell at his concession speech tonight, as would be expected in this race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would wait a little bit on these CA results because it's so dim skewing. It could not possibly be. I mean, the margins, even like Doug LaMalfa's district right now, he's only getting 52% of the vote. To put it bluntly, Republicans only getting 56% of the vote in Doug LaMalfa's district. That's not going to hold. This is a district that has all of the deep red counties I think aside from one in Northern California, all the way down to like Butte. And what's the other one? There's like half of the metropolitan area. And they're like, this is not going to hold. This is, I think, these early votes are really, really skewing Democratic.
Yeah, this is not going to hold. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I do think California is coming in a little bit faster than I expected, actually, which is a pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think probably that the controller race is the most interesting to me at this point. And also, of course, the LA mayoral race, which, I mean, that would be a massive black eye for Democrats, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, this is the rough equivalent. Yeah.
I said this on Elections Weekly. I think the people watching now should really get a taste of this. So Karen Bass was in Congress. She was considered for the VP spot, as we all remember. That was a wild time. It feels like a hallucination. And
for some reason.
And apparently, when Kamala Harris became vice president, she had a call with Gavin Newsom about filling her Senate seat. And she didn't endorse anyone. She didn't explicitly say to not pick anyone. But apparently by the time she got off the call. Newsom was like, "Oh, well, I know she fucking hates Karen Bass." So, like, apparently holds a massive grudge against Karen Bass for trying to swoop in and take the VP spot from her. And it would be also objectively very funny if then Karen Bass ran for mayor and lost.
To a Republican.
Yeah. Like in the realm of results of just like, there's a lot of ignominious ends to some political careers tonight, it looks like, and this might be one of them.
Yep. Gotta look through anything else remotely interesting with these results here.
We got the drop and then nothing else comes in.
Yeah,
welcome to California.
Welcome to California. San Francisco said it will be dropping most of its final results at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So,
ugh. I gotta get up for work at 7 tomorrow. Fudge me. Fudge me.
But hey, I will say the biggest winner of California redistricting has to be the 8th district, John Garamendi, who has gone. He's getting 67% of the vote in his new, very safely Democratic district. Yeah, he has repeatedly moved.
Isn't that the one who like nearly blew it? Isn't he the one who nearly blew it in 2020? He only won by like 7 points or something.
Yeah, he keeps moving from district to district. He's never really had a home. He just keeps moving based on new lines. So this is this new district, I guess, is the 8th, which is actually the 8th is closer. It's much more southern than his current district, which takes in inexplicably large portions of rural California, along with adjacent Bay Area suburbs-ish area, Sacramento suburbs. The new district is a lot safer. I mean, it's very, very safe. The new 4th isn't anything to write home about either. I mean, that's Mike Thompson got 71% of the vote there. That has Lake County and then a bunch of other Democratic counties.
Poor Lake County.
Nah, they're competitive. They vote for Democrats. They're fine. I like when I draw California, I like to put them with a Republican district just because I don't think they're like the Bay Area. The real annoying one is the 2nd district where Jared Huffman in 20 invents the concept of a district stretching all the way from one end of the Bay to the other. And then the commission is like, yeah, I believe you. This is a real community of interest that exists, and we're going to create it. And then this next commission is like, yep, that's a good idea. Let's put these two. I know Kraz has his defenses as like the weed triangle, but it's an objectively weird community of interest. It just goes from Marin County all the way up to Del Norte.
No, see that's a bad district. That's a bad district because, but I'm saying I always like drawing a district that's kind of like the weed, like counties up there, and then like some of the more what is a wild experience that I think non-Californians don't get is like in like there are so many areas, particularly in Garmendi's district around like the Sacramento River Valley, that are just like farming communities, and they're like 60% Democratic. Like you would drive around these places and it's like dirt roads, vineyards, like and like creeks, and then it's like, oh wow, they all vote for Democrats. Like it's like
I've driven. When my family we did a road trip throughout some of the West Coast from Portland down to San Francisco.
Well, if you remember the Windows
That's some good food.
XP,
There's some good food on
if you remember the Windows XP background, that was taken in that part of California, the rural dirt road area.
Yeah.
Like that's like the rough way. And that looks like if you look at a picture of that, I'm like, oh, that could be North Carolina. Nope, that's rural California, and it votes for Democrats by a zillion points.
Yeah, it's wild. Like so, and yeah, so that's just like it's a wild time. So I think like there's some of those areas that are just weirdly like progressive farmland.
It's so rural, right? I mean, that's the weird thing is it's very white, very white. A lot of weed. I mean, like when we say white, like very, very white, extremely white, 80, 90% white. And these counties, like in particular, what is it? The 2nd district. You've got like Humboldt County, like that is extremely white, extremely very rural, and votes for Democrats by like 75 to 25 margins. Right. I mean, it's
all hippies. I think that was the party where in 2018, the peace and freedom candidates came in the highest of any county in the state.
Oh, Jesus.
80% like white and like tons of farms, and it's like the socialists or like it's really.
I hate hippies so much.
It's literally.
I mean,
I truly
I
do.
don't know. California is just weird. California is just weird to me. I just don't get it.
Well,
It
should not exist.
I said this.
California should be 3 different states.
I said this on,
Yes.
on Elections Weekly too. Northern California, and especially those farmland areas, is one of those places where it doesn't make sense demographically. And one of the reasons is that one of the parties is just like so uncompetitive, so like unorganized and uncompetitive that it allows for these kinds of weird things that don't match up with the demographics.
Hooray for dipshittery.
I mean, I've had my proposal before to split California into 3 states. I'm actually going to draw it in Dave's redistricting real quick. One of them would be the greater San Francisco, greater LA, and then the entire rest of the state. I just call it the state of Reagan, for lack of a better term. But like, they're 3 very, very. I mean, California is a big state. It's not just big in terms of population; it's big geographically. It is a gigantic, enormously large state. It is. People really, really underrate how diverse California is in a lot of ways, beyond just being, demographically diverse, right? I mean, you don't see a lot of states where you have 80-20 farmland that votes for, 80-20 white farmland that votes for Democrats other than like Vermont. Then you got, but you also got the Central Valley, which is like tons of Hispanics. And it's more Republican than you would expect a lot of areas, that are like that to vote, to be even historically, right? I mean, it's a fascinating state. People really tend to people don't understand why California shifted Democratic. It makes a lot more sense, and it goes beyond just diversity. It's like there's a bunch of other reasons why California is the way it is.
I guess that's true.
There are no big pockets in California of a lot of like working class whites. So that's actually very important.
Other than like a bunch of really tiny rural counties up in the north that have no people and voted for George McGovern. Like, they voted for Jimmy Carter, like those sorts of places.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
so,
my humble proposal to divide California into 3 states. Let me grab it right here. Here we go. This is the 3 states. Got all the Bay Area, got all of Southern California, except for these nowhere areas. And then you got like even the rest of the state is only Trump plus 6. And you took in all the Republican areas, and you don't even include San Joaquin, and it's still only Trump plus 6.
Ouch.
Rough state for Republicans. Very, very not ideal state for them. But it's even like you got the ski people. You got the ski people like Alpine and Mono and Inyo. You got the ski people. Nevada County, Placer, like diverse state. Very, very diverse communities. I was thinking, are any of the Board of Equalization districts expected to be competitive? I know that there's
the Board of what?
The Board of Equalization. There's 5.
The Southern California one, maybe
because like there's one Republican district and they vote like it barely. It's even Democratic if you look at the actual. In
2020, I think the story was that the one Republican district flipped to Democrats with a no-name guy who like had been arrested for domestic violence or something. Like nobody supported him, and like, but he just like he had the D next to his name, and so he won. Which again, like there's objectively some very funny stuff when you like have ridiculous stuff like that.
But yeah, we're going to go a little bit longer for you guys. We're probably going to shut it off here around 12:30 Eastern time, so about 8 minutes. Yep. We're basically kind of tapped out in terms of results until, later on. We're not going to be up here until 2 a.m. Yeah, it's too late.
I like my sleep.
Yeah, Dave Wasserman also seems to agree that these early returns are all skewed towards Dems.
Yep, that's what I read.
Everything's going to come down to earth. Everything is going to come down to earth. Like again, Doug LaMalfa is not getting 52% of the vote in District 1, and only Republicans getting 56. That's not happening. There's like no Democrats in that district. Well, there's not no Democrats, but like by California standards, it's like a 60-40 Trump district, right? So, although again, Doug LaMalfa underperforms consistently for some reason. He does. I don't know why, but he does. He underperforms. One thing I find really interesting about like even Northern California is like the level of mid-sized cities in like Northern California, like Redding.
You've never heard of? Yeah.
Stop. Redding, California.
100,000 people.
Yep. It has a Republican mayor too, but like Redding, California is in Shasta County. It's got almost 100,000 people. And in a lot of states, that would be like a fairly important city. No, this is like in the middle of nowhere, California.
Yeah.
Like this is Shasta County has 182,000 people. That is a lot of people. That is a good number of people. And it's a tiny county by California standards.
Yeah.
It actually keeps getting more Republican too.
What a fun state.
Yeah. I mean, it keeps getting more Republican. It's gone, went from 63%, 64% Trump to 65% Trump. It's actually growing in population and getting increasingly Republican somehow. So,
Redding is a place I don't really fully understand it. I think it has a lot of like very religious whites. Like
it has. It's on a Bethel Church if you're familiar with. It's the home of like a lot of evangelical Christian sort of folks.
Yeah, so that's why. But it's it's the biggest Republican county in California, and
for reference, Bethel has 11,000 members. That's like Southern megachurch standard numbers. Again, there's only 98,000 people in Redding total, so that's a pretty substantial portion of the population going to one megachurch.
Yeah, wait, that's big.
Questionable.
That's about like their weekly attendance is apparently 9,000. That's about 10% of the population of the city. That's Southern megachurch numbers.
Yep.
And I do know. I mean, I actually had one of my former bosses who lived in Northern California, and the number one thing that was a complaint for him was water issues. He blames everything on water, on Southern California just refusing to allow them to complete water treatment. They're like, "Hey, we need water." And so, Southern California will let them build desalination plants they'll stop building them once the water supply is back to normal. That was basically what he would say is, like, he basically just blames Southern California for everything. From what I've heard, Southern California does the same thing for Northern California. And then the Central Valley just likes to be acknowledged that it exists. And not acknowledged as in building a bullet train, like actually like, hey, we exist. And we're not just a corridor for high-speed rail.
We will acknowledge you when we eminent domain your house to build the high-speed rail that won't get finished.
From Merkhead to Bakersfield.
Yeah,
truly what Americans have been asking for.
we will simply acknowledge you when we initiate condemnation proceedings against you.
That's LA County. That's LA County with everything north of the mountains. Just the people live in the middle of nowhere. And they said literally people live in the middle of nowhere in the desert in northern LA County, and they'll send nuisance abatement teams out there to like condemn properties in the middle of nowhere in the desert for not meeting city code.
Yeah, it's like damn, we are legally required to acknowledge you every once in a while. Otherwise,
but no, let's see if anything has changed in the San Francisco race. It's
no, they're not. They're going to do the way San Francisco does it. They're going to do one more giant drop at 2 a.m. Eastern, and then they're going to periodically update over the course of the next week and a half, probably. They're probably going to update about like 12 times, and then they'll be done.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and those updates will be relatively minor. Yeah.
All right, I think we're winding down tonight, folks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, folks. Thank you guys all for staying with us tonight. It's been about 3.5 hours. Again, a pretty good viewer hold. I don't think we dropped below 40 people on the night, which until real, and I don't think we've been dropped under 50 until recently. So that's pretty good. So if you're new here, please like and subscribe here on the channel. Obviously, we'll be back here on Friday night with our version of Elections Weekly, which will recap tonight's primaries. So thank you all for coming out with us tonight. We will see you Friday night for that recap. And you guys have a good night. I'm going to go to bed because it's 12:30 here in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to bed.
Yep.
You guys have a good night.
Yep.
Yep.